Chapter 149, Don't cry too pitifully if you lose. I don't need you, third prince, to lecture me on what I should do. If you're too afraid to accept the challenge, then admit defeat now. We won't look down on you for it, Su Yingxue said confidently as she touched the red jade soft whip that Lin Sisi had given her red lips curling with pride. Her stunning face exuded an air of boldness and recklessness, captivating all the men present and igniting a desire to conquer her, to possess her beauty. Su Yingxue, you're asking for trouble. Tomorrow, one will make the two of you women kneel before me and beg. Chu Zuwen's face turned red with anger, his teeth clenched. Despite playing with women for so many years, there wasn't a single one he couldn't tame. Third brother. Chu Chengye attempted to advise him against impulsiveness. However, Chu Xiuwen grabbed the reins and pulled him closer, questioning, Don't you want the Su sisters? If you let that wretch Su Yingxue become your main consort, how will Su Yuro ever have a good life? If you want to bring both sisters into the residence, you need to first subdue Su Yingxue. Let her understand that regardless of her lofty status, she can only be a concubine. In the future, the two of them can serve you together. You can't be soft-hearted towards women. Chu Chengye's fleeting sentiment of tenderness toward women was extinguished by Chu Zuwen's words. Chu Chengye held his head high and took confident strides forward. If you two want to challenge us, then third brother and I will accept. Just don't cry too pitifully when the time comes. F-inf. Cry. Well, see who ends up crying. Lin Sisi slung her longbow over her shoulder, exuding a confident and heroic aura. Su Yingxue spoke calmly, Very well, we'll see who the winner is tomorrow. The news of Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi challenging the two princes spread throughout the spring banquet, achieving the intended effect Su Yingxue had sought. Satisfied with the outcome, Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi went to prepare. Their training went unseen by anyone. So much so that when Chu Yihan heard the news and came to find Su Yingxue, he couldn't locate her. Later that night, Su Yuro pondered the day's events repeatedly. Although she had intentionally provoked Chu Chengye into accepting the challenge. However, Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi's smiles before they left made her feel uneasy. Su Yingxue had been behaving oddly lately, and her mother's advice still lingered in her mind, prompting her to be cautious. She sent Yuan Ruo to inquire about it. When Yuan Ruo returned, she told her, Miss, one couldn't find out what eldest young Miss and Lin Sisi are up to. Even the third prince and seventh prince couldn't be found. They're being extremely secretive. Why the secrecy? What is Su Yingxue planning? Su Yuro had already retired for the night, but upon hearing Yuan Ruo's report, she contemplated it and felt something was amiss. She instructed Yuan Ruo to discreetly visit her mother and return with the information. Upon her return, Yuan Ruo brought Liu Shulan's words. Her mother let her stop Su Yingxue and Chu Chengye from competing. Initially, Su Yuro did not understand why. It was impossible for Su Yingxue to win against the two princes, right? Even if she did win, it would only result in some rewards. However, Liu Shulan's letter stated that Su Yingxue was cunning and cautioned against the competition. Furthermore, Liu Shulan pointed out a way for Su Yuro to inform the Empress, urging the Empress to intervene and stop the challenge. Su Yuro quickly got up and headed to the Empress chambers. The Empress was about to rest. She felt that Su Yuro's actions the last time were too stupid and did not want to see her at all. However, Liu Fu, who was by her side, informed her, Your Majesty, Miss Su is kneeling outside. She claims there is an extremely urgent matter concerning the two princes. Chapter 150. The plan was destroyed. She's just a nameless concubine's daughter. What urgent matter could she have? She's just clinging to Ye, using those lowly tricks. The Empress' eyes showed a hint of disdain as she allowed Liu Fu to help her retire for the night. Su Yuro had knelt outside the Empress' chamber the entire night. When the Empress rose in the morning and learned that Su Yuro was still kneeling, she summoned her inside. When Su Yuro emerged, it was clear her knees were sore, making walking difficult. Yuan Ruo looked at her with sympathy. Miss, why did you need to be so subservient before the Empress? The ambition in Su Yuro's eyes was evident. I pleaded with her not only to make Su Yingxue suffer but also to experience it. Experience what? Yuan Ruo didn't understand. Su Yuro didn't answer, but she knew very well that she was doing this to experience the satisfaction of becoming an empress. She would carry the status of a concubine's daughter for the rest of her life. In the future, when she married Chu Changye would ascend to the throne and she would be the empress. At that time, there would be people kneeling before her until their legs gave out. Early in the morning, Lin Cixi knocked on Su Yingxu's door. Seeing her already in her riding attire, she grabbed her enthusiastically. "Let's go, Dr. Su. Today, we'll crush them without mercy. Let's teach those princes a lesson." Su Yingxue smiled and accompanied her. But as they had just taken a few steps, Lin Aotian approached with a grim expression. "Cixi, the emperor summons you. He wants you and Miss Su to make a trip to the imperial court." "Why do we need to go to the imperial court? The competition is about to begin, and Dr. Su and I are waiting to enter." Lin Cixi stomped her foot in frustration. "The emperor has summoned you, you must not refuse." Lin Aotian insisted and took Su Yingxue along as well. On the imperial fusion platform, Chu Mingyuan sat with his consorts, enjoying the scenery and observing the fluttering flags as teams prepared for departure. When Su Yingxue arrived, Chu Changye and his brother were present, still wearing their riding attire, their faces solemn. A sense of unease washed over Su Yingxue. Could it be that Chu Mingyuan was going to interfere with today's competition? This subject's daughter pays respects to the emperor. Su Yingxue and Lin Cixi knelt in unison. Once Chu Mingyuan signaled for them to rise, he spoke directly. "I've heard that you wish to challenge the princes. One forbid it. Today, both of you need not enter the hunting grounds. Stay here on the imperial fusion platform and watch." "Emperor!" Lin Cixi protested with a displeased tone. Su Yingxue's eyes darkened. Just as she suspected, her plan had been thwarted. But who did it? Su Yingxue's gaze shifted to Su Yuro, who was beside the empress. It was odd that she occupied that particular position today. Su Yuro was obediently attentive to the empress side, avoiding Su Yingxue's gaze altogether. In contrast, the empress sneered. Some people think their meager skills make them worthy of ascending to the clouds, even daring to challenge a prince. What a joke. Empress, one prevented them from hunting to ensure their safety. After all, women have never formed hunting teams in the past. The forests are dangerous and filled with fierce beasts. "I am merely concerned for their well-being," Chu Mingyuan retorted, even phrasing his words more favorably to comfort Su Yingxue and Lin Cixi. Lin Cixi was still dissatisfied. She pointed at Chu Xiuwen and Chu Changye. "Emperor, if we can't enter the hunting grounds, why can they?" "Of course, they can. They are princes and valiant men. Why not?" "Lin Cixi, don't overstep your boundaries," the empress admonished sternly. Chapter 151. Accidentally acting coy. Lin Cixi remained deeply dissatisfied, but she understood that she couldn't openly oppose the empress. She gritted her teeth and begrudgingly returned to Lin Aotian's side. Lin Aotian patted her back. "All right, Cixi, later I'll personally bring back a fierce tiger for you." "Humph." Lin Cixi seethed inwardly. She was fully capable of taming a tiger on her own. Chu Xiuwen playfully fanned himself as he stood up, laughing. "Seventh brother, father didn't explicitly forbid us from going to the hunting grounds. We're men, not to be trapped like women. Let's go change." Chu Changye nodded in agreement. Chu Xiuwen intentionally walked past Lin Cixi and Su Yingxue with Chu Changye, flaunting their presence. Lin Cixi was on the brink of exploding with frustration. Her anger was getting the best of her, and she even considered snatching the red jade soft whip from Su Yingxue's hand. "Stop fooling around." Su Yingxue lightly tapped her small hand. Lin Cixi was so frustrated she could almost cry. However, Su Yingxue calculated that the brothers needed some time to change and enter the arena. She still had time to do something. Quietly, she slipped into Chu Yihan's courtyard. The upper forest court was the nearest temporary residence to the imperial palace. Chu Yihan held a unique and esteemed position, and his courtyard here was just as large as the emperor. Moreover, Su Yingxue remembered there was a pathway here that led directly to the imperial palace, and it was quite convenient. So, she sought Chu Yihan's assistance, hoping he could invite Consort Xiong over. Chu Yihan's stern face showed no emotion. "Why should I help you?" Su Yingxue pursed her lips. "Your Highness, please help me invite Consort Xiong over. In return, I'll help you discipline your two unruly nephews. The third prince's insolence towards you yesterday was truly unacceptable. If he isn't taught a lesson, how will he learn to respect his imperial uncle?" "Haha." Mochi chuckled, thinking Su Yingxue was quite skilled in improvisation. Chu Yihan set down his teacup and leaned his head on his hand, a lazy smile tugging at his lips. "One want to teach those two good-for-nothing nephews a lesson. One don't need anyone else. I can just do it directly." Su Yingxue was at a loss for words. "You're quite confident, aren't you?" she thought. "Your Highness, please help me. I want to teach them a lesson." Su Yingxue unconsciously acted a bit coquettish towards Chu Yihan. The corners of Chu Yihan's lips curled up. Mochi thought to himself, the master is certainly reveling in this. He quietly withdrew. Chu Yihan remained silent, and time was running out for Su Yingxue. In a rush, she approached Chu Yihan, grasped his hand, and pleaded, "Your Highness, please send someone quickly. If it's delayed, Consort Xiong won't make it in time. There's still a journey ahead of her." Chu Yihan's hand was held by Su Yingxue, her soft fingers gently caressing his hand like a massage. A sense of contentment swept over Chu Yihan. "Very well, I'll help you. But how do you plan to express your gratitude?" "Your Highness surely doesn't require my gratitude." Su Yingxue was still her mischievous self. Chu Yihan had taken away her jade pendant and handkerchief, and she hadn't retrieved them yet. Gratitude again. She had nothing left to offer Chu Yihan as a token of thanks. "If you don't express gratitude, I won't help." Chu Yihan toyed with her jade pendant, a hint of playfulness in his cold expression. Su Yingxue tilted her head, contemplating whether to make a threat to Chu Yihan. "Are you going or not? If you don't, I'll kiss you," she thought. But then she remembered that the person in front of her was the 9th prince. Even Chu Chengye and Chu Xiuwen had to bow their heads obediently before him. Su Yingxue decided it was wiser to keep herself alive for a few more years. So, she earnestly inquired of Chu Yihan, "Your Highness, what kind of expression of gratitude would you like?" Chu Yihan looked at her approaching face, her rosy lips tempting, and replied with a faint smile, "Kiss me." Chapter 152. A fair competition. Su Yingxue's eyes widened in surprise, her expression frozen amid astonishment. She heard Chu Yihan continue, 9 more times. No way. Su Yingxue immediately and decisively rejected the proposition. The idea of 10 kisses was already pushing the boundaries. Why did he have to extend it to 9 more times? Chu Yihan simply acknowledged her response, his demeanor turning cold. The room became as frigid as an ice mountain. Su Yingxue lightly touched the cold jade on her chest, which was still emanating warmth within her body. With determination, she approached Chu Yihan, facing his profile, and lowered her head for another kiss. A click. The sound of their lips brushing against each other's skin echoed with a hint of ambiguity. Gentle. Delicate. However, those who listened closely could discern the sound. Chu Yihan stole a glance at Su Yingxue. She appeared quite self-assured, as if to say, "I've kissed you, so now you can go find Consort Xiong, right?" Chu Yihan maintained an upright posture and turned his face to directly face Su Yingxue. "I've already kissed you," Su Yingxue said, her voice tinged with suspicion. "There are still 9 to go." Chu Yihan reminded her. Counting kisses, there was no way to deceive him. "We can continue kissing later. Your Highness, please invite Consort Xiong first. Otherwise, we might run out of time." Su Yingxue was growing frustrated. Negotiating with Chu Yihan was proving to be an incredibly challenging task. "I won't go until you finish." Chu Yihan was resolute. Su Yingxue covered the cold jade on her chest and thought, it's just kissing, after all. 9 more times. Who was afraid of whom? The door slammed shut with a resounding clang. Su Yingxue advanced toward Chu Yihan with determination. By the time she emerged again, Half an hour had gone. She lowered her head, hand covering her mouth, then turned to glare at Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan's lips were now cut, a trace of blood lingering at the corner of his mouth. As he wiped away the blood with his finger, a faint streak of red appeared on his face. This added a touch of allure to his already pitilessly handsome countenance, making him appear especially enticing. Su Yingxue deeply regretted seeking out Chu Yihan. Not only had she been taken advantage of, but she had also squandered time. If he went to invite Consort Xiong now, he didn't know if he could make it in time. Anxious, she returned to the Imperial Fusion platform, only to find that Chu Changye and his brother had yet to set off. Lin Sisi was already mounted on her horse, waiting for her. Lin Sisi eagerly waved at her. "Dr. Su, hurry. The Emperor allowed us to enter the hunting ground. He even gave us special permission to compete with the 3rd Prince and the 7th Prince." Lin Sisi was brimming with excitement, her eyes practically radiating joy. Su Yingxue was a bit perplexed, but then she noticed Consort Xiong standing beside Chu Mingyuan. Consort Xiong was breathtakingly beautiful, her complexion as smooth as ice, and she exuded an otherworldly allure. Her sapphire-like eyes met Su Yingxue's, accompanied by a kindly smile. As it turned out, Chu Yihan had already dispatched someone to fetch her. Consort Xiong didn't address Su Yingxue directly. Instead, she gracefully took a seat beside Chu Mingyuan and spoke tenderly, "Thanks, Emperor, for granting me the opportunity to experience the magnificence of the hunting grounds and witness the competition between the young ladies and the princes." Chu Mingyuan's affection for her was evident. Initially, when the Empress approached him, expressing concern over the matter, he prevented both Lin Sisi and Su Yingxue from participating in the event to preserve the royal family's dignity. He had also considered guarding against any mischief from Su Yingxue. However, Consort Xiong's unexpected arrival changed the situation. She expressed her love for hunting and lamented that her gender and health prevented her from partaking. She wished to see the young ladies who had the chance to compete. Since she had just arrived from the palace, she couldn't have coordinated with Su Yingxue beforehand. Consequently, Chu Mingyuan granted her request without much hesitation. Chapter 153. He's going to protect Su Yingxue. He just couldn't bring himself to reject her. Seeing a hint of regret and sorrow in her eyes would make his heart ache. For years, the Empress had harbored jealousy toward Consort Xiong. Her attempts to harm her had failed, and she had even been punished and confined in the past. Now, Consort Xiong had emerged to challenge her once again. A glint of ruthlessness flashed in the Empress' eyes. If Consort Xiong's health is not good, she should stay in the palace. The upper forest court is dusty, and if you fall ill, don't blame me for not treating you well. Consort Xiong was immune to such words from the Empress. She simply leaned against Chu Mingyuan's embrace. Chu Mingyuan rarely witnessed a smile on Consort Xiong's face. When she ceased smiling, he turned to the Empress and lashed out, "Empress, if you continue to scold Consort Xiong, then go back to the palace." The Empress, scolded in front of everyone, found herself speechless and embarrassed. Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi exchanged amused glances on the sidelines. Especially when they saw Chu Xiuwen and Chu Chengye's expressions sour after the Empress scolding, their amusement grew even stronger. To appease Consort Xiong, Chu Mingyuan offered his bow as a reward, promising that the winning team would receive it. Consort Xiong also removed a pearl hairpin from her head. "I'll contribute this pearl hairpin as a reward, along with the Emperor's bow." "Very well." Chu Mingyuan happily embraced her. "A pearl hairpin is nothing. 111 offer 3 golden hairpins as a reward." The Empress refused to be outdone, immediately tossing 3 golden hairpins into the reward plate. "If the Empress is so generous, then I, a concubine, must also step up. I'll offer 10 golden hairpins as a reward." Noble Consort Xiao strolled over gracefully, exuding an air of elegance and luxury. Coupled with her generosity, she quickly overshadowed the Empress' sharpness. She was particularly confident in Lin Sisi and Su Yingxue, smiling at them and saying, "You 2 young ladies must compete well. If you win, I'll have additional rewards." "Thank you, noble consort." Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi expressed their gratitude. Noble Consort Xiao covered her mouth and giggled. With her wealth and Consort Xiong's favor from the emperor, the two of them flanked the empress, leaving her looking like a clown. Chu Xiuwen, seeing the empress being mistreated, couldn't help but grit his teeth. Seventh brother, we must make those two women kneel and cry. Chu Changye initially had no plans to target Su Yingxue, but seeing her confident expression, he grew irritated. Su Yingxue, you're the one who's disregarding the face I'm giving you. Don't blame me later, he thought. The four of them rode into the forest like eagles just learning to fly. Consort Xiong remained in Chu Mingyuan's arms, her eyes filled with envy as she watched Su Yingxue's figure disappear into the distance. She believed that Su Yingxue would surely win. Sheng Ping observed from a distance near the entrance. She noticed Chu Yihan entering the forest on horseback. In the past, he had never bothered to participate in such hunts. They were beneath him, and he saw no need to vie with his juniors. But this time, he joined. Princess, how many fierce beasts do you think your highness can hunt? Liana tried to lighten Sheng Ping's mood. Sheng Ping's lips curved into a faint smile. He's there to protect others. He probably doesn't care about hunting fierce beasts. Perhaps, his main concern was whether Su Yingxue would get hurt. However, with his protection, it would be hard for any harm to come to her. Princess, please don't feel this way. Your highness has saved you before. Liana couldn't bear to see Sheng Ping so depressed. Chapter 154. Provoking. He saved me because he annihilated the Yu Kingdom, but he protects Dr. Su because he loves her. In the distance, figures were no longer visible, yet Sheng Ping still couldn't resist craning her neck to catch a glimpse. Even if she could just see the dust kicked up behind Chu Yihan. After Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi entered the forest, they showed off their skills. There were palace guards following behind them to pick up the prey they hunted. In half an hour, their baskets held a harvest of 20 or 30 creatures. Chu Xiuwen looked at his and Chu Chengye's prey. It was only half of theirs. There was a trace of anxiety in his eyes. Seventh brother, what's gotten into you today? You're absent-minded. Are you going to lose to those two obnoxious girls? Chu Chengye snapped back to attention. Chu Zuwen's shout threw off his aim. Swoosh! Su Yingxue's arrow struck the target he had lined up moments before. She even promptly had someone retrieve the prey. Chu Chengye couldn't help but exclaim, Su Yingxue, that's my catch. Your highness, is your eyesight lacking? The arrow on that prey belongs to me, Su Yingxue. If your highness wants prey, aim more precisely. Su Yingxue sneered, turned her horse, and galloped away. The gusty wind billowed her long hair, and her gallant figure was captivating, even from behind. Chu Chengye felt as though a cat's claw had raked across his heart. He cursed his damned infatuation with Su Yingxue. Swoosh! Another empty shot. Chu Zuwen's aim was off, and the rabbit escaped. He was infuriated. Damn it! He was about to pursue the prey when he saw Chu Chengye still dazed. He couldn't help but roar, Seventh brother, if you keep dawdling, get ready to kowtow to those two wretched girls. Chu Chengye's heart sank. Clenching his teeth, he followed Chu Xiuwen. For a full hour, they raced through the forest. During a break, Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi showcased prey twice the amount of theirs. Chu Zuwen's gums were about to bleed. He couldn't believe that these two wretched girls were so good at hunting, especially Su Yingxue. This wretched woman was participating in a hunt for the first time, but why was her horsemanship and archery so extraordinary? He was well acquainted with all the women in Jiangdu City, meticulously observing their every word and action. Yet this Su Yingxue, she was utterly unforeseen. Su Yingxue knew Chu Xiuwen was watching her. She didn't know how many times Shed made a disdainful gesture at him, inciting his anger to the point where he broke 3 fine bows. Lin Sisi was excited about hunting and came to look for Su Yingxue, only to find that she was secretly competing with Chu Xiuwen. She could not help but ask what she saw. Dr. Su, why are you specifically targeting the third prince today? Don't you hold a grudge against the seventh prince? Su Yingxue smiled. Sisi, birds of a feather flock together. I despise both of them, so it's only natural to target them without hesitation. Her reasoning was plain, and Lin Cece instantly grasped it. Dr. Su, how do you intend to deal with the third prince? Please let me know. This guy is truly detestable. One of my cousins was ensnared by him, her innocence violated, and then he discarded her. She still hasn't been able to marry. Lin Cece's teeth were gritted as she spoke. She regretted not having the ability to seek vengeance for both herself and her cousin earlier. Now, she wouldn't let him go. Su Yingxue nodded. All right, let's lure him deep into the woods later. Lin Cece wasted no time talking action. Their provocative words and the fact that they were showing off their prey made Chu Xiuwen lose his rationality. He abandoned the idea of comparing the number of prey and rode his horse straight toward the area where the ferocious beasts were. Chapter 155. Encountering a tiger. The Empress was anxiously watching from the Imperial Fusion platform. Xiuwen, how could you venture into the territory of ferocious beasts? Ye, quickly follow your brother. Even though Chu Chengye had caught up, the Empress remained on edge. Noble Consort Xiao, nibbling on delicate pastries nearby, sneered coldly. The third prince dares to hunt fierce beasts, so he must have the skills for it. Your Highness, it seems you know about his capabilities, or else why be so concerned? He shouldn't have gone to the area with dangerous beast. Noble Consort Xiao, how dare you accuse my son? The Empress was infuriated. This is what the Empress said herself. I'm just curious if third prince has the ability. Noble Consort Xiao, who was watching the show, did not mind the matter getting out of hand, angering the Empress even more. If you say so, how capable is your son? He can't even hold a bow and arrow. The Empress' anger was immediately directed at Chu Jinling, who had found a table at the back and was obediently writing a book. Noble Consort Xiao gave Chu Jinling a fond look. My son is naturally talented. Just look, the other princes have gone off to play, while my Linga is obediently staying here to accompany his mother and the emperor. Chu Jinling occasionally looked up, flashing Noble Consort Xiao a charming smile, making her heart swell with happiness. The Empress felt stifled. Her son was being unruly, and she couldn't win the argument. She was close to fainting from anger. In the thick forest, Chu Xiuwen wasn't adept at horseback riding and archery. As soon as he entered, it became inconvenient to ride, feeling restricted. But he was stubborn and would not allow himself to lose to those two wretch women. He began scouring the area for signs of the beasts. He had a squad of guards trailing behind him. He commanded, search for this prince. Find a ferocious beast and make sure to kill it and bring it back. He refused to believe he couldn't outdo those two wretch women. Third prince, I've never heard of anyone needing guards to assist in a hunt. Su Yingxue's mocking voice echoed. When Chu Xiuwen glanced her way, Su Yingxue's arrow was already trained on him. Su Yingxue, what are you doing? Chu Xiuwen cried out in panic. Swoosh. The arrow was released. Chu Zuwen's eyes widened as he watched it hurtle toward him. It grazed his cheek and pulled him off his horse with considerable force. Chu Xiuwen fell into the mud, his entire body tinged with the earthy fragrance. Rolling onto his feet, he erupted into curses. Su Yingxue, you're plotting against a prince. It's a capital offense. Su Yingxue shrugged, appearing entirely nonchalant. Just as Chu Xiuwen was about to draw his sword and advance on her, a sudden howl pierced the air. Roar. A gust of wind accompanied the sound, causing nearby vegetation to quiver. Chu Zuwen's legs turned to jelly. He spun around and spotted a tiger twice his size directly in front of him. Your Highness, run. His guards trembled as they shouted. Chu Xiuwen also wanted to flee, but fear had left him rooted in place, his legs like lead. The tiger seemed to be fixated on him, approaching even though others were present. Your Highness, aren't we here to hunt ferocious beasts? Why are you so frightened at the sight of a tiger? Su Yingxue sat astride her horse, watching him with a playful smile. She seemed entirely unafraid of the tiger. If it were possible, Chu Xiuwen almost believed that Su Yingxue had deliberately released the tiger to scare him. Roar. The tiger let out a series of enraged roars. Chu Xiuwen stood there, trembling like a sieve. Su Yingxue, still atop her horse, offered him a well-meaning reminder. Third prince, if you don't run now, you'll end up as the tiger's lunch. Chapter 156. Killed 2 lions. Su Yingxue, just wait. Chu Xiuwen finally managed to move his legs, turning around and sprinting as fast as he could. However, his 2 legs were no match for the tiger's 4. In addition, the arrowhead Su Yingxue shot at him was stained with muskiness. Spring was the time when animals were in heat. This tiger smelled the muskiness on his body and would chase him until it got its hands on him. Whether he lived or died would depend on his skills. Su Yingxue's lips curled into a smile. Memories of the women who had suffered at Chu Zuwen's hands fueled her satisfaction in seeking revenge for them. As she was about to ride away, she heard a faint rustling from the surrounding foliage. Her horse seemed startled, lifting its front hooves. Swoosh, Su Yingxue gently patted her horse's head to calm it. She had spotted 2 pairs of eyes hidden in the woods. These eyes had been observing for a while, waiting for the tiger to chase Chu Xiuwen away before revealing themselves. Su Yingxue's heart skipped a beat. Emerging from the underbrush were 2 lions. These lions were different from the previous tiger, which had lunged at Chu Xiuwen like a ravenous beast. These lions were composed, waiting patiently for the right moment. She had dealt with Chu Xiuwen, which meant that there was no one by her side now. Su Yingxue tightened her grip on the bow and arrow in her hand. She did not expect that she would attract a lion, not just 1, but 2. She squeezed the horse's stomach and was about to run away, but the 2 lions blocked her way. The 2 of them seemed to have discussed it beforehand. Today, they would leave her corpse behind to eat. Su Yingxue clenched her teeth. She couldn't run away now, so she could only fight with them. As the lions charged at her, she crouched on her horse's back and released an arrow. Unfortunately, her shot missed, and she tumbled off her horse. Her horse neighed and bolted, but the lions didn't give chase. They continued to fixate on her. Su Yingxue was now bruised and battered. She continuously drew her bow and arrows, retreating, but she was unable to injure the 2 lions at all. Damn it! Su Yingxue muttered under her breath. How had she managed to attract such ferocious beasts? Su Yingxue. A displeased male voice resounded, sending a shiver through the 2 lions. One of the lions abruptly lunged at Su Yingxue. She had no time to defend herself, and in an instant, a scream pierced the air, followed by the thud of a body hitting the grass. When Su Yingxue reopened her eyes, the lion that had attacked her lay dismembered. Its limbs twitched on the ground. The other lion roared menacingly at Chu Yihan. Roar. Chu Yihan, his figure poised, was about to deal with the remaining lion when Su Yingxue shouted, "Come on." She fled, and the remaining lion pursued her. Chu Yihan leaped over several trees to catch up. He pulled her into his embrace, swiftly decapitating the lion. 2 lion heads rolled to the ground. Chu Yihan covered Su Yingxue's eyes and wiped the blood from her face. Curiously, he asked, "Why did you run?" She was shocked and her voice was trembling. One was scared. Chu Yihan had initially thought that it was strange, but now that he saw that she was frightened, he immediately softened his heart and hugged her in his arms. He rubbed the back of her head and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. One won't let you get hurt." Su Yingxue felt a soothing warmth in her heart. Chapter 157. Chu Xiuwen was heavily injured. However, she had just confirmed something. These 2 lions weren't from Upper Forest Court's hunting grounds. They were trained to hunt her. Dr. Su, are you okay?" Lin Cece's booming voice reached them, and Su Yingxue quickly distanced herself from Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan hadn't finished hugging her and gave her a dissatisfied pinch on her little face. Lin Cece rode her horse over and greeted Chu Yihan. "Greetings, Your Highness." Then, she noticed the 2 lion heads and the separated lion body. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, Dr. Su, you took down 2 lions." Su Yingxue was speechless. Lin Cece held her in high regard. She smiled wryly, thinking of saying that Chu Yihan did the killing. Chu Yihan unexpectedly handed her the sword. "Hold on to this." Su Yingxue received it in a daze. Then, Chu Yihan left, leaving her and Lin Cece to be discovered by the palace guard who followed them. Lin Cece was overjoyed, her laughter unable to be contained. Dr. Su, you're incredible. I've been hunting so many times and never bagged a fierce beast. Teaming up with you this time was such a stroke of luck. And that third prince. Ha ha ha. Lin Cece's laughter echoed through the forest, a testament to her genuine happiness. Su Yingxue pretended not to know and asked, "How's the third prince?" He wet his pants. The tiger nearly had his head off. If it weren't for the seventh prince's arrow hitting the tiger's eye, we'd be attending his funeral right now. When Lin Cece spoke, her relief was palpable. For her cousin and for the girls who had suffered at the hands of the third prince. Su Yingxue smiled knowingly. As she and Lin Cece emerged from the forest, they spotted Sheng Ping not far off. Sheng Ping, usually downcast, now had a smile on his face when he saw Su Yingxue. Their gazes met in the air, and Sheng Ping respectfully saluted her from a distance. Su Yingxue nodded, and the two shared an unspoken understanding. Lin Cece and Su Yingxue returned with a full load. Lin Aotian was happy when he saw this. He patted Lin Cece's shoulder and laughed. As expected of my daughter, Cece, you've made me proud. Of course. But, father, the fierce beast was taken down by Dr. Su. Next time, 111 hunt a tiger for you and make a tiger skin coat. Lin Cece was straightforward and honest, making sure Su Yingxue received credit. Su Yingxue held Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword, her smile tinged with shyness. Su Yingxue, are you okay? I heard you encountered a lion. Chu Chengye rushed over in a disheveled state, still clad in his hunting attire. When he had saved Chu Shouwen earlier, Chu Shouwen had already been sent for treatment due to his serious injuries. He also had injuries on his body, but after hearing the news about Su Yingxue, he could not control his feet. Su Yingxue's face turned cold when she saw him. Thank you for your concern, seventh prince. I'm fine. Chu Chengye heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that she was fine. However, he frowned when he saw the sword in her hand. That's Qingfeng's sword. His imperial uncle's prized sword. How did it end up in Su Yingxue's possession? Did he save Su Yingxue? A surge of intense jealousy gripped Chu Chengye's heart. If it wasn't for the delay in saving Chu Shouwen, he would have rushed in to save Su Yingxue. Dr. Su, you're truly brave. Consort Xiong was supported by Chu Mingyuan. She had a smile on her face that always made people feel relaxed. Chu Mingyuan went to see Chu Shouwen. He was originally in a bad mood, but Consort Xiong accompanied him and spoke a few words along the way, immediately dispelling his worries. Chapter 158, Su Yingxue wins. In addition, when he saw Su Yingxue and Lin Cece return with a full load, Chu Mingyuan stroked his beard and laughed. Indeed, women can be just as capable. Emperor, Emperor. Dr. Su and one brought back the most prey, and Dr. Su even took down 2 lions. Does that mean we've won the competition? Lin Cece's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Cece. Lin Aotian pulled her back worriedly. Chu Shouwen had just been injured, and Lin Cece claiming credit like this might make Chu Mingyuan lose face. Chu Mingyuan's expression darkened slightly. Emperor, you have spoken. You won't go back on your words, will you? Miss Lin and I won, so we should be rewarded. Su Yingxue was even more direct in asking for a reward. Her boldness outshone Lin Cece's and subtly covered for her. Though Chu Mingyuan seemed displeased, the matter of the reward was settled. He couldn't let others down just because his son was injured. He waved his hand, maintaining a smile. I hereby declare that this year's spring hunt winners are Lin Cece and Su Yingxue. Wow. Thank you, Emperor. Dr. Su, we won. We won. Lin Cece enthusiastically hugged Su Yingxue and shouted. Her enthusiasm infected many presents. Even those who had previously looked down on them had to admire them now. And plenty of others showed appreciative looks. Chu Jinling and noble Consort Xiao were also watching from the Imperial Fusion platform. Chu Jinling's eyes lit up. Aunt Su. Yingxue is truly amazing. Absolutely. A capable girl from a prestigious family. How could she get hurt by mere beast? Noble Consort Xiao was smiling, her words aimed at the Empress. The Empress' face turned green. Aside from her concern for Chu Xiuwen, she had to maintain her dignity as the Empress. But noble Consort Xiao was taunting her. Seeing the Empress' dissatisfaction, noble Consort Xiao was pleased. She held Chu Jinling's hand and casually said, "Linger, you must open your eyes and respect those outstanding talents. Don't target them with bias. Otherwise, you'll end up hurting yourself." Chu Jinling knew his mother was provoking the Empress again. He simply smiled obediently and replied, "Yes, one understand." The Empress couldn't contain her frustration and began quarreling with noble Consort Xiao as if venting. "Noble Consort Xiao, what do you mean? Who are you implying? Are you targeting my son? I didn't say that. Why is the Empress in such a hurry to assume? What's with the baseless accusations? Noble Consort Xiao, it's obvious you're doing it intentionally. Empress, don't be so hasty to pin blame on others. It's akin to a tiger chasing after the third prince without heeding consequences. Ha ha ha. Noble Consort Xiao, what did you just say?" Chu Mingyuan heard their argument but chose to ignore it. Consort Xiong mentioned she was a bit tired, so he escorted her to rest. As he was leaving, his gaze brushed over Su Yingxu's hand, carrying a profound meaning. This glance served as a reminder to Su Yingxue. She had to return the sword to Chu Yihan. The Qingfeng sword was no ordinary weapon. It was Chu Yihan's cherished sword, a companion in battles, a prized possession. Su Yingxue ignored these people who were flattering her and went to look for Chu Yihan with the sword. Just as she reached the doorway, she bumped into Mo Qi. Mo Qi was taken aback, looking as if he had seen a ghost. "Miss Su, is your highness here? I've come to return his sword." Su Yingxue held out the Qingfeng sword with both hands. Chapter 159, Red Lotus Ambush. However, Mo Qi's expression was filled with terror as he stepped back. "Your highness is not here, but the sword. Miss Su, you can hold on to it and return it to your highness tomorrow." The blade still bore traces of unwashed blood. Su Yingxue didn't understand why Mo Qi's eyes were so fearful, but she glanced at the sword and indeed, it was stained. If she were to return it, she should at least clean and polish it before doing so. Wouldn't it be impolite otherwise? On the eastern side of the upper forest court, there's a spring. Atis Su can go there to clean the sword. Mo Qi kindly offered a location. Su Yingxue smiled. "Thank you." Just as she was about to leave, Mo Qi let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, she turned back with the sword, and Mo Qi's heart jumped to his throat. "Miss Su, what's the matter now? Why are you so frightened of me?" Su Yingxue had been wondering about this since earlier. Mo Qi was Chu Yihan's right-hand man. His gaze wasn't this erratic when he looked at her before. Why did he now look like he had seen the king of the underworld? Mo Qi's mouth twitched awkwardly. "Miss Su, aside from your highness, only the deceased have touched that sword." A deadly touch. Now that she was carrying Chu Yihan's sword, he was probably scared out of his wit. This time, it was Su Yingxu's turn to feel awkward. She was holding the sword and it seemed she had to go. But after she left, she turned back and reminded Mo Qi, "Your breathing is irregular, and your internal injuries are severe. It's better to rest well and reduce the dosage of atractylodes macrocephala and mugwort. Take care of yourself." Mo Qi was dumbfounded. Had Su Yingxue diagnosed him from a distance? Before he could even say thank you, Su Yingxue had already disappeared. She went to the back mountain to clean the sword. Ziwei followed her. Su Yingxue squatted by the stream, scooped up the clear water, and meticulously wiped away the bloodstains from the blade. When she noticed the ancient and mysterious patterns on the sword, a sense of admiration surged within her. It was said that the Qingfeng sword ranked among the top 3 treasures in the armament list. An ancient secret, it had not decayed over the years due to being soaked in so much blood. As a result, those with lower martial skills couldn't wield it and couldn't suppress the sword's ominous aura. Yet Chu Yihan had managed to tame it. Su Yingxu's respect for Chu Yihan overflowed. She was so absorbed in her task that Ziwei had to repeat 3 times in a hoarse voice, "Danger." Only then did she snap out of it. Ziwei and her had retreated to the stream. The small waterfall was concealed by dense forest and now, it was crowded with people. They all carried a murderous aura. Su Yingxue could sense that they were assassins, just like Zi Wei. "Let's go to the Silver Moon Pavilion," Zi Wei whispered to her. Su Yingxue's eyes darkened. As expected, the Silver Moon Pavilion hadn't given up on pursuing her. "Su Yingxue, where do you think you can run to this time?" A soft, mocking laughter sounded. Her seductive face was laced with scorn. Clad in a long gown embroidered with a fiery red seven-petal lotus, she was exceptionally eye-catching in the twilight. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. "Pavilion Master Hong Lian, you went to great lengths to target me. But I'm sorry to inform you that I've taken your lions as rewards." Hong Lian's tone turned cold. "Miss Su is indeed clever, but those two beasts were just too useless." A faint smile tugged at the corners of Su Yingxue's lips. "Beasts are only as good as their master." A malicious glint flashed in Hong Lian's eyes. Su Yingxue was essentially calling her useless. "Su Yingxue, do you truly believe you can escape today?" Hong Lian waved her hand, and the 12 hidden figures emerged from the shadows. Chapter 160, Poisoned her eyes. Su Yingxue's heart skipped a beat. There were so many people. Zi Wei shielded her, and seeing her counting the figures, he promptly informed her, 19. How do you know?" Su Yingxue leaned against his shoulder, her exquisite eyes brimming with curiosity. "Because he used to be one of them, the finest assassin of our Silver Moon Pavilion." Hong Lian smiled, her fingers trailing along a strand of hair that fell to her right. "Has number 1, and these are the remaining 19. They are ranked based on their abilities, from 1 to 20. "What number 1? His name is Zi Wei." Su Yingxue retorted coldly to Hong Lian while guarding her food. "Zi Wei?" Hong Lian's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Having a name doesn't change anything. He's still just an assassin. Unworthy of being human." "Su Yingxue, care to guess how long number 1 here can hold out against the remaining 19? Hong Lian's tone carried a strong threat. Su Yingxue understood that Zi Wei alone couldn't possibly prevail against these formidable 19. Her palms were moist with sweat. In this critical moment, she mentally called out to Little Ginseng, "Little Ginseng, Little Ginseng, are you awake? Come out now." Little Ginseng. It had remained silent towards her for a while now. No matter how much she called, Little Ginseng didn't respond. Could it be that she was truly about to fall into Hong Lian's hands this time? "Run, you." Zi Wei disengaged from the fight with the 19 assassins and shoved Su Yingxue away. Su Yingxue was blocked by Hong Lian. With deep-seated resentment already harbored, Hong Lian's jealousy was further fueled by the sight of Su Yingxue wielding the Qingfeng sword. Flames of envy surged within her. "You dare to steal his sword? Su Yingxue, you're seeking death." Su Yingxue raised her sword to parry, swiftly turning around. The sword's edge sliced through the 7-petal lotus on Hong Lian's dress. She raised an eyebrow provocatively. "Who can steal his belongings?" "He gave this to me." "Nonsense. No one is allowed to touch your highness' precious sword. Anyone who has touched it is dead." Hong Lian bellowed. "But I'm still alive and well, aren't I?" Su Yingxue pointed her sword at Hong Lian. The gleaming blade reflected Hong Lian's contorted face, distorted by jealousy. Hong Lian's sharp fingers reached out, directly aiming for Su Yingxue's throat. As the master of the Silver Moon Pavilion, Su Yingxue could only withstand Hong Lian's onslaught for about 15 minutes, thanks to the Qingfeng sword. Her possession of the sword barely enabled her to fend off the attacks. As the sky grew darker, Su Yingxue called out, "Zi Wei." Zi Wei promptly disengaged from the battle, racing to her side. Su Yingxue whispered in his ear, "In a moment, I'll release some powder. Well, run right away. Once we're through the woods, they won't dare to pursue us any longer." Zi Wei nodded, his blood-streaked throat uttering a hoarse, "Okay." The two of them coordinated seamlessly. Hong Lian resumed her pursuit of Su Yingxue, eager to claim her head. However, Su Yingxue flung a handful of powder at her, effectively blinding her. This was a type of toxic powder Su Yingxue had experimented with based on her mother's notes. It was called chaotic flower. The chaotic flower seemed to enter the eyes. If it came into contact with the eyes, it would blind a person instantly, and their vision wouldn't fully recover for at least a month. Hong Lian was blinded, immediately covering her eyes and screaming, "Su Yingxue, what have you done? Pavilion Master Hong Lian, you've attempted to kill me multiple times. This is my gift to you. Let's meet again next month." Su Yingxue laughed heartily and vanished alongside Ziwei. The remaining 19 individuals, without Hong Lian's command, dared not pursue further. They supported Hong Lian, whose eyes were red and swollen, overwhelmed by an intense burning pain that brought tears to her eyes. Chapter 161. Taking off without Hong Lian's orders, the remaining 19 people did not dare to chase after Su Yingxue. They supported Hong Lian. Hong Lian's eyes were red and she could not open them. The burning pain made her cry non-stop. She clenched her fists tightly, her sharp nails piercing into her flesh. She gritted her teeth and said angrily, "Su Yingxue, you and I are irreparable." Su Yingxue concealed Ziwei in her private chamber. Both of them were injured, with Ziwei's injuries being particularly severe. She retrieved the medicine box she had brought and took out all the medicines made from blood-clotting grass. The scent of blood emanating from Ziwei was overpowering. Su Yingxue approached the bed and commanded, "Take off your clothes." Ziwei didn't move. Su Yingxue, holding the medicine, repeated, "Hurry and undress. I need to apply the medicine for you." How much longer did he intend to endure such serious injuries? In the dim light, a hint of crimson appeared on Ziwei's cheek. "Ziwei, are you being disobedient?" Su Yingxue's expression grew serious, and her tone became firmer. Ziwei promptly removed his clothing. She had spoken with the authority of a master, leaving him no choice but to obey her command. Su Yingxue sighed as she applied the medicine. "Your old wounds haven't even healed yet, and now you've acquired new ones. When will you stop getting injured?" She looked at Ziwei's chest and back. His originally perfect figure was now without a single piece of good skin. There were many wounds caused by knives, spears, swords, and halberds. There was also a very ferocious scar on his chest. One could imagine how much pain he had suffered at that time. Su Yingxue remembered her carelessness earlier that day. She had already sensed the presence of the Silver Moon Pavilion's people, yet she allowed Hong Lian to exploit the opportunity to attack her. Filled with guilt, she apologized to Ziwei, "I'm sorry. If one hadn't gone to clean the sword, you wouldn't have been so gravely injured." "No," Ziwei shook his head. Protecting her was his responsibility. "What do you mean no? Listen carefully when I apologize." "Yes," Ziwei muttered in a hoarse voice. Su Yingxue finally breathed a sigh of relief after tending to his injuries. As Ziwei dressed himself, the dark purple light in his eyes remained fixed on her. "Your injuries." Su Yingxue noticed a few cuts on her arms from Hong Lian's sharp claws. "They're not deep," she replied nonchalantly. "I'll take care of them," Ziwei stated calmly. "All right." Su Yingxue handed him the medicine and gauze, and Ziwei proceeded to bandage her wounds. Throughout the process, Su Yingxue clenched her teeth and realized that there was a reason Ziwei suffered so many injuries. Many of them were likely self-inflicted due to his violent tendencies. Once Ziwei had finished, he saw Su Yingxue biting her lip, her face slightly pale. He was concerned and asked, "Are your injuries serious?" Su Yingxue shook her head. "The injuries are minor, but you were a bit rough, Ziwei. In the future, if I'm not around, remember to go easy on yourself. Don't compound your injuries when others have harmed you." Ziwei's heart trembled strongly. His focus wasn't on the injuries but on Su Yingxue's words. If she wasn't around in the future. A crack appeared in Ziwei's otherwise cold eyes. "You. Not here. There will inevitably be times when I'm not by your side. You must take care of yourself," Su Yingxue earnestly advised. "No," Ziwei replied in a cold tone and disappeared. Su Yingxue was taken aback. She didn't realize that her words had offended him. Did even assassins have tempers? However, she didn't have time to dwell on his mood. She had more important matters to attend to. She carefully stored Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword and immediately set out to find Princess Shengping. Chapter 162. Her mother isn't Vietnamese. She feared that when she wasn't around, Chu Yihan might come to retrieve the sword. So, she instructed Jilan that she should only reveal her whereabouts if Chu Yihan specifically inquired about her. Princess Shengping was also waiting for Su Yingxue. There were several dishes laid out on her table, and when Su Yingxue arrived, she had just finished her meal. Shengping stood up and greeted her with a smile. Su Yingxue raised her hand to halt her. "Princess, there's no need for formalities between us. Are you satisfied with the third prince's fate today?" Liana knelt and kowtowed to Su Yingxue, still sobbing. "Thank you, Miss Su, for seeking justice for our princess. Our princess ate a bit more for dinner tonight." Su Yingxue nodded. "In that case, princess, can you tell me now?" Shengping invited her to sit by the bedside for their conversation. As they faced each other, Shengping couldn't help but admire Su Yingxue's dignified demeanor despite her injuries. She was prepared to share everything she knew. "Dr. Su's mother was likely my mother's best friend before they turned 10. When I was young, my mother introduced her friends to me one by one. The only one missing was the person who created the cloud patterns with her." "So, you mean my mother and your mother haven't seen each other since they were 10? Su Yingxue's eyes narrowed, and she was filled with perplexity. "Yes, and my mother's friend has a unique identity, unlike other nobles in the Yu Kingdom." "She is not from the Yu Kingdom," Shengping emphasized. Su Yingxue stood up abruptly. "If she's not from Yu Kingdom, what is her identity?" "She is the Grand Princess." Liana suddenly interrupted her with a joyful expression, rushing in and panting. "Princess, ninth prince has arrived." Shengping's heart trembled, and she instinctively checked her appearance and attire. She went out to welcome Chu Yihan, but Chu Yihan walked past her and approached Su Yingxue, holding her hand as he asked, "Why are you here?" Su Yingxue was still lost in her thoughts about her mother's background, but with Chu Yihan's arrival, she changed the subject. "I'm here to check on the princess and see how she's recovering." Shengping echoed her with a soft hum. "Are you finished?" Chu Yihan inquired. Su Yingxue confirmed that she had completed her examination, and Chu Yihan took her away. Throughout their encounter, he never glanced at Shengping. However, Shengping followed them and watched as Chu Yihan and Su Yingxue walked away side by side until their figures disappeared. On the way, Chu Yihan's gaze was filled with concern. "Mochi mentioned that you went to the stream to clean your sword. One went to investigate and found signs of an unresolved fight. Do you know what happened?" Su Yingxue shook her head reflexively. Nothing happened. She had yet to figure out how to disclose her conflict with Hong Lian to Chu Yihan. After Ale, Hong Lian sought her mother's letter, and she had directly taken away Hong Lian's best assassin, which could be considered a significant feud. Furthermore, she still didn't know the nature of Chu Yihan's relationship with Hong Lian. She couldn't speak hastily. "Why are you injured?" Chu Yihan's brows furrowed deeply. "I was rolling around in the forest this afternoon. After one returned, I bandaged myself up." "It's nothing," Su Yingxue offered a well-intentioned white lie. She truly hadn't meant to deceive Chu Yihan. She simply didn't want him to worry. However, when she noticed that he wasn't leading them back to their residence, she inquired, "Where are you taking me?" "We're going to the Martial Virtue Hall. The Empress suspects that Chu Zuwen's injury might be related to you and wants to conduct an investigation." Chapter 163. Chu Zuwen's injury. Seeing Su Yingxue's slight stunned, he immediately placed his hand on her shoulder. His broad palm grasped her petite, rounded shoulder, and his deep voice reassured her, "Don't worry. With me here, even if Chu Xiuwen is injured, it won't be a problem." Su Yingxue awkwardly chuckled. "How did you manage to guess correctly again?" However, this was a part of her deal with Shengping. If she told Chu Yihan, she would inevitably contradict her previous statements and have to disclose everything. Su Yingxue decided to endure it. The Martial Virtue Hall was splendid and brightly lit. The Empress had been crying by Chu Mingyuan's side. When she saw Su Yingxue enter, She pointed at her as if she had encountered an archenemy. Emperor, it's her who caused Zuwen's injury. Showen is so badly hurt. You must seek justice for him, Emperor. Her cries grew even more miserable. Chu Mingyuan's face remained cold, and he didn't pay much attention to her tears. There was even a hint of disgust in his eyes. Noble Consort Xiao noticed this and lightly stroked her nails before speaking. Empress, you should first inquire. What if you accuse someone wrongly? After all, the third prince is still unconscious. Noble Consort Xiao, what business is it of yours? The empress gritted her teeth and gave her a fierce glare with her eyes red from crying. Noble Consort Xiao, gazing at her meticulously manicured and exquisite nails, snorted, What? Even as a noble consort, don't I have the right to speak in front of the emperor? I just want to make things difficult for you. Is that not allowed? Noble Consort Xiao thought. The empress was so furious that her entire body trembled. Just as she was about to argue with Noble Consort Xiao, Chu Mingyuan sternly shouted, Enough, Empress, didn't you suspect that Su Yingxue had something to do with Zuwen's injury? Now, in my presence, if you have evidence, present it. Su Yingxue tilted her head. It was evident to anyone in the hall that Chu Mingyuan was impatient with the empress, who was seeking his help in this matter. Su Yingxue was also curious. Could the empress detect the musk scent left on her arrowhead? Ye, summon the court physicians. The empress wiped away her tears and waved her hand, instructing Chu Changye to bring in 2 court physicians. Chu Changye had just finished examining Chu Showen. His face resembled a stormy sky. When he entered, he gave Su Yingxue a fierce glare. The 2 court physicians knelt in front of Chu Mingyuan. Chu Mingyuan first expressed concern, How is Zuwen's condition? One of the court physicians replied, Emperor, the third prince's injuries are severe. He has been wounded by a fierce tiger in multiple places, and his leg bone was bitten. I'm afraid he will require several months of careful recuperation. Su Yingxue ruffled her hair. It seemed that she had been too lenient. Perhaps she should have used a heavier dose of musk scent. In that case, Chu Showen would have lost half his life. Chu Mingyuan felt deeply for his son. He instructed the court physicians to take good care of him and then inquired, The empress summoned you. What have you discovered on Showen? Another older court physician spoke slowly, Emperor, on the surface, it appears that the third prince was wounded by a fierce tiger. However, one found something unusual in the wound on the third prince's face. In that wound, there was the scent of musk. In the midst of spring, when wild beasts are in heat, they would target the third prince upon detecting the musk scent. Therefore, I suspect that the third prince's severe injury was intentionally caused by someone. The slightly younger court physician beside him added, Furthermore, the third prince was injured and developed a fever. He kept mentioning that Su Yingxue harmed him. This matter is likely connected to Miss Su. Emperor, you have heard it, haven't you? With the testimony of the court physicians, it's evident that Showen was poisoned by Su Yingxue. She has a ruthless heart and great audacity to have done such a cruel thing to Showen. The empress hastily knelt in front of Chu Mingyuan and cried. Chapter 164, Su Yingxue can withstand your injustice? Su Yingxue raised her lips in a smile. Your Highness, are you perhaps too hasty in your judgment? Are you accusing me based solely on the court physician's testimony? Su Yingxue. Chu Mingyuan's voice deepened, carrying the authority of an emperor. Su Yingxue immediately knelt and spoke earnestly, Emperor, one have been wrongfully accused. I implore you to investigate this matter. Ye mentioned that when Showen was unconscious, he repeatedly claimed that you harmed him. Were you with Showen just before the tiger attacked him? Chu Mingyuan's deep gaze carried a sharp edge. While staring at Su Yingxue, he exerted considerable pressure. However, Su Yingxue maintained her straight posture while kneeling. Emperor, it is true that I and the third prince rode into the forest together. But what does that prove? Does it mean that it was my fault that the tiger attacked the third prince instead of me? A trace of grievance filled Su Yingxue's eyes. It's not your fault, Chu Yihan coldly affirmed. The cold glint in his eyes also contained a warning directed at Chu Mingyuan. Chu Mingyuan snorted but had no intention of arguing with Chu Yihan. But the court physicians claimed that there was a musk scent on Zhu Wen's wound. How do you explain that? You are a physician. You should be aware of the properties of musk. It's not uncommon for you to carry musk with you. Chu Mingyuan was much more incisive than the empress, hitting the nail on the head. Su Yingxue held her head high. Carrying muskiness is indeed not unusual. But if I wanted to harm the third prince, why would one harm myself as well? Today, the third prince was chased by a tiger, and I was chased by a lion. Could it be that one plotted against the third prince and had to sacrifice my own life? Noble Consort Xiao, supporting her head lazily, chimed in, Miss Su, what you're saying makes perfect sense. Who would harm others and willingly sacrifice their own life? Moreover, one is a prince, and the other is the marquis's daughter. Chu Mingyuan pondered for a while but couldn't find any fault in Su Yingxu's argument. However, the empress was sobbing hysterically. Emperor, the two court physicians are witnesses. Zhu Wen's wound had a musky smell, and he repeatedly claimed that Su Yingxue harmed him. Xiuwen is a good child, and he would never lie. Emperor, even if you don't trust the court physicians, you can't distrust Xiuwen. Nonsense. I could also argue that He's deliberately framing her. Chu Yihan shot a cold look at the empress. The empress was infuriated. Ninth prince, you're blatantly taking her side. I'm not. If imperial sister-in-law isn't convinced, I can bring Chu Xiuwen here and have him repeat it. When Chu Yihan became resolute, he wouldn't yield to anyone. The empress was rendered speechless. Chu Chengye quickly intervened. Imperial uncle, you can't. My third brother is severely injured and unconscious. He can't withstand the jolt. Then can Su Yingxue withstand your accusations? Chu Yihan's dark eyes gazed over, provoking Chu Chengye's anger. Indeed, his imperial uncle was showing favoritism toward Su Yingxue. Enough, both of you, be silent. Chu Mingyuan rubbed the space between his eyebrows and shifted his gaze onto Su Yingxue. She maintained a straight posture while kneeling, revealing no flaws. On the empress side, there was no substantial evidence, which only fueled his frustration. Su Yingxue, it's one thing for Xiuwen to say confused things, but can you truly explain the musk scent on his wound? Chu Mingyuan could only use this point to question Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue also thought of a reason. Emperor, may I inquire whether the tiger that chased after the third prince was male or female? Chu Mingyuan hadn't delved into this detail. He turned to Chu Chengye. It was a tigress, Chu Chengye replied. Chapter 165, Noble Consort Xiao is an interesting person in that case. I thought about the possible presence of musk on the third prince's wound. Go on. Chu Mingyuan examined her closely. Just as the court physicians mentioned, spring is the mating season for wild beasts. Tigresses also need to mate, and they may carry traces of male musk. What's so unusual about it? It injured the third prince again. Is it so illogical for the third prince's wound to have musk on it? Su Yingxue blinked her big, watery eyes, sincerity filling them. After she spun such a tale, everyone present found no valid reason to refute her. Especially the court physicians who had just spoken, their faces turned even greener, and they seemed to wish they could slap themselves. You're using sophistry. You're the one who harmed my son. The empress was on the verge of hysteria. Su Yingxue had already said everything, so how could she be in the right? No. She couldn't be in the right now. Emperor, 1 a.m. willing to testify for Dr. Su. She did not intentionally harm the third prince. When Lin Cixi received the news, she rushed into the hall and knelt with Su Yingxue. Behind her, Lin Aotian, the demon who protected his daughter, also came. Emperor, Dr. Su is a benevolent doctor. She would never do anything to harm others. Moreover, she has no grudge against the third prince. Why would she harm the prince? This is a serious crime. Chu Mingyuan's already furrowed brows tightened even more. Nonsense. Lin Aotian and Lin Cixi, both of you have been bribed by Su Yingxue, haven't you? I will not forgive you. The empress roared hysterically. At this moment, The only difference between her and the shrew in the market was a phoenix crown. Lin Cece sneered and said, "Father and one haven't been bribed. Ordinary people can't buy us." Lin Outyen affirmed that he was as steadfast as his daughter. Disappointed, Chu Mingyuan glanced at the Empress. "All right, I've made my judgment. This matter has nothing to do with Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue, you may leave now." He firmly pronounced his decision and released Su Yingxue. The Empress was almost unhinged. "Emperor, how can you do this? How can you let Su Yingxue go? She harmed Xiuwen. Xiuwen is our son. What else do you expect me to do? Do you have any evidence? Has anyone witnessed her harming Xiuwen firsthand? Do you want me to unjustly convict someone?" Chu Mingyuan angrily shook off the Empress and turned to leave. "Proceed to Consort Xiong's palace." His departure at this moment was a cutting remark, plunging deeply into the Empress' heart. Noble Consort Xiao observed the weeping Empress and felt some sympathy. TSK, Empress, it's better to return to the palace and rest early. This is truly embarrassing. Noble Consort Xiao, it's not your place to discuss my mother. Chu Chengye shouted at her. Noble Consort Xiao sneered, disdainful of arguing with someone of lower rank. However, as she passed by Su Yingxue, she beamed radiantly. Miss Su's performance today was truly splendid. "One have a reward for you." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Su Yingxue found the reward puzzling but sensed that Noble Consort Xiao was an intriguing person. "Let's go, Dr. Su, I'll escort you back." Once everyone departed, Lin Cece held Su Yingxue's hand joyfully, reminiscent of a child. She didn't feel any pressure from Chu Yihan whatsoever. While walking, she smiled at Su Yingxue. "Dr. Su, you're amazing. You taught the third prince a lesson." He could only suffer in silence. "Just thinking about it makes me feel better." Suddenly, Su Yingxue sensed an immense pressure behind her. She turned around and saw Chu Yihan looking at her with a dark expression. Chapter 166, Imperial Uncle Ferocious. She promptly pushed Lin Cece away and cautioned her, "Next time you do something wrong, don't reveal your identity to others." Chu Yihan might appear out of nowhere. Lin Cece was still a little stunned. Suddenly, she felt a coldness that was like a 10,000-year-old iceberg. She turned around and saw Chu Yihan and her legs trembled. Remembering that Chu Yihan was Chu Zuwen's imperial uncle, she fled like a rabbit. Only Su Yingxue was left standing alone under the moonlight. She faced Chu Yihan alone. As soon as Chu Yihan walked over, Su Yingxue obediently placed her hands in front of her chest. Chu Yihan did not speak, but the cold air and pressure he was releasing grew heavier and heavier as time passed. "Your Highness, if you intended harm to Chu Xiuwen, why didn't you inform me?" Chu Yihan questioned sternly. "What?" Su Yingxue was so surprised that her mind was filled with question marks. "If you had let me assist you, I could have directly taken Chu Zuwen's life." Su Yingxue was rendered speechless. This imperial uncle. Wasn't that too ruthless? "Your Highness, in truth, one didn't want to harm him. One simply found him distasteful." Cece also mentioned that one of her cousins was harmed by Chu Xiuwen. How loathsome is it for someone like him to lead such a dazzling life just because he's a prince? Su Yingxue gritted her teeth, her face radiating hatred. She silently prayed, "Your Highness, please don't see through my act. Don't see through it. That's right. I intentionally harmed Chu Xiuwen. But I can't tell you. Never mind, don't harm yourself in the future." Chu Yihan gently ruffled her hair, as if consoling a child. Su Yingxue lifted her head and met his profound gaze. His eyes resembled an abyss, dark and unfathomable, tinged with coldness and iciness. Yet she couldn't resist wanting to gaze at him a bit longer. The more she looked, the more she desired. Under the moonlight, the tenderness in his eyes was enchanting. Su Yuro observed their interactions from a distance. She tore her handkerchief in frustration, suppressing her anger. Why? What gave Su Yingxue the right? She had stolen the limelight at this spring banquet. She had captured Chu Chengye's attention and ensnared his heart. She even made Chu Yihan so partial to her. What right did she have? Su Yingxue, just you wait. Su Yuro clenched her teeth. She didn't return to the manor that night and hurried straight to Liu Shulan's place. The next day, Su Yingxue resumed her medical consultations and headed to Tongchang Medical Center. She had been absent for 2 days, and Manager Qi was tirelessly busy in the clinic. Upon Su Yingxue's return, Manager Qi presented a series of plans. He suggested that the clinic could be expanded to twice its size, admit more patients, open additional wards, and even establish a branch in the western part of the city to revive Tongchang Medical Center's reputation. Manager Qi was a capable and detail-oriented individual. Su Yingxue glanced at the plan he had formulated and readily approved it. After Manager Qi explained further, he hesitated and said, "Miss, the idea is excellent, but in the long run, our income might become somewhat tight, especially since you allocated a substantial sum to Miss Wu for opening the 1,000-jiao pavilion. What about the income from the grain and oil shop? Allocate it all for investment in the clinic. And Sister Jinyan's initial investment mustn't fall short. Even if she doesn't request it, check with her across the street. If she still needs money, you must not be stingy. You can only give her more, not less. Understand?" Su Yingxue urged. Chapter 167, Chu Jinling's bookstore manager Qi sighed. "I know, but Miss has invested so much. Without money on hand, I still have some concerns." In her previous life, Su Yingxue hadn't been involved in business, but she understood that to succeed in any endeavor, an equivalent investment was necessary at the beginning. You had to put in as much as you expected to get out. Since she had committed to let Wu Jinyang do as she pleased, she had to keep up with her. As for expanding the clinic, she was contemplating whether to do it concurrently. She sat down with Manager Qi and did some calculations, realizing that simultaneous expansion did carry risks. If something went awry, they might not have enough funds to make timely corrections. "Miss, the 9th prince has arrived." Just as Su Yingxue was pondering this, a god of fortune suddenly appeared. Chu Jinling brought a chest of gold and tossed it in front of Su Yingxue. "I heard you were discussing expanding the clinic. Will this be enough?" Su Yingxue was left utterly astonished. Manager Qi, looking at the chest of gold, was even more bewildered. "Is this a reward from the 9th prince?" Chu Jinling shook his head and smiled. "My mother gave this to me. Consider it yours." After saying this, he threw the gold to Manager Qi, asking him to clear some space, as he wished to speak privately with Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue nodded, and Manager Qi collected the gold. She patted Chu Jinling on the shoulder, saying, "Thank you so much. This is a reward from my mother, it's not related to me. If you want to express your gratitude, go thank my mother. She believes you're someone capable of achieving great things, and there will surely be times when you need money." Chu Jinling grinned and winked, his admiration for his mother's judgment evident. "In the future, when I visit Consort Xiong in the palace, I'll also pay my respects to the imperial consort. But 9th prince, you didn't come here for no reason today, did you?" Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. "Of course, I have a reason. Didn't we agree before that I'd share half of the earnings from publishing the book with you? I've just finished writing the new volume, and I've brought it for you to take a look." Chu Jinling, treating his manuscript as a cherished item, handed it to Su Yingxue. As Su Yingxue flipped through the pages, he nervously reminded her, "Handle it gently. It hasn't been sent for printing yet." Su Yingxue smirked and joined him in reading. TSK, 9th prince, I must say, you don't seem suited to be a prince." Su Yingxue rested her head on her hand, giving Chu Jinling a thorough appraisal. How did such a talented writer end up in the royal family? Chu Jinling carefully stored away his manuscript, completely unfazed by Su Yingxue's sarcasm. He proudly declared, "I've led a smooth life as a prince. I don't have grand ambitions. As long as I'm happy, that's enough. However, I've always treated people sincerely. If I say I'll give you half of my earnings, then I will. Come to my bookstore in a couple of days, and we'll share the spoils." After flaunting his manuscript, Chu Jinling took his leave. Su Yingxue saw him off and felt that something was amiss. She was collaborating with him on writing a book, So how did it turn into sharing the proceeds? Bah. Although the wording might not have been the best, 2 days later, Su Yingxue wrapped up her current tasks and went to his bookstore as agreed. She had assumed that Chu Jinling was a casual person, and his bookstore would be no different from those on the street. However, she was in for a surprise. Chu Jinling's bookstore was not only spacious but also housed many renowned authors. She entered through the main door. The room was filled with the fragrance of ink. The air was still filled with the freshness of bamboo leaves. The bookstore was divided into inner and outer halls. The outer hall had dozens of large bookshelves, neatly categorized with various types of books. The store had dedicated staff to prevent book theft and to explain and collect books. Chapter 168. Care for her? As for the inner hall, it was indeed a paradise for scholars. A folding screen separated the reading rooms for men and women. Outside the windows on both sides, there were picturesque views, casting the figures of scholars in a setting that resembled an otherworldly paradise. Perhaps it was the ambience, but those who came here to read possessed remarkable qualities. They were neither noisy nor disruptive, quietly engrossed in their books, either copying or taking notes. The atmosphere wasn't as formal as that of an academy, but it exuded an even greater sense of elegance and charm. Su Yingxue was invited into the backyard. She was aware that behind Chu Jinling's bookstore, there was a place for relaxation. However, what she didn't anticipate was that this space was connected to a private residence. It boasted beautiful mountains, serene waters, and breathtaking scenery. There were artificial hills with meandering streams, and carp ponds beneath bridges, and upon passing through an archway, one would find themselves in an open-sided hall. If one listened carefully, the sweet calls of cuckoo birds could be heard around the hall. Their crisp and melodious sounds filled the air. Chu Jinling was seated, engrossed in a game of chess with someone. Upon seeing Su Yingxue, his eyes brightened. "Auntie, come over here." In being bullied to death by Imperial Uncle, the moment he spotted Su Yingxue, he pouted and complained about a child, pointing at Chu Yihan. "Imperial Uncle won't let me have a single move. Has been beating me so badly that I have nowhere left to place my pieces." Chu Yihan, clad in a long purple and gold robe, held a white chess piece in his hand. He responded sternly, "A loss is a loss. Why are you making it sound so dignified?" Chu Jinling pursed his lips and put on a pitiful expression in front of Su Yingxue. He appeared weak and wronged, evoking sympathy. How pitiable. Su Yingxue took a white chess piece from his chess box and placed it on the chessboard. Thump. "Your Highness, the 9th prince hasn't lost yet." Su Yingxue tilted her head, her expression filled with pride. Chu Yihan tossed the black chess piece into the chess box with a faint smile on his lips. "I concede." Chu Jinling remained unconvinced. He rolled up his sleeves and exclaimed, "Imperial Uncle, don't be so biased. You can freely defeat me, but with Auntie, you just surrender directly. Your heart has twisted." Chu Yihan's expression remained indifferent as he gestured toward Su Yingxue. There. His heart had already taken a different direction. A hint of embarrassment flickered across Su Yingxue's face. Wasn't he being a little too direct? Chu Jinling quickly stood up. "Goodbye, Imperial Uncle." He left in a huff, refusing to stay and witness their affectionate interaction. Woof. This was simply too much of a tease. Su Yingxue and Chu Yihan hadn't seen each other in a few days. Now that she saw him, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of excitement. Chu Yihan had put considerable effort into their meeting today. He had arranged for Chu Jinling to visit the clinic to find her and then brought her to this remarkable place. With such splendid scenery, his striking countenance, and his kind treatment of her. "Come here." Chu Yihan extended his hand, bringing her over to sit beside him. His fingers lightly grazed her wrist, touching the most tender skin on her arm. Su Yingxue felt a faint electric sensation as his fingertips transmitted a gentle current from her wrist to her skin, causing her entire nervous system to quiver slightly. "Your Highness, I want to ask you something." Chu Yihan's sudden question snapped Su Yingxue out of her reverie. She gave her cheeks a light pat and cleared her mind of any romantic notions. With a gaze of pure innocence, she looked at him. Please, go ahead. Do you happen to know of a poison called chaotic flower? Su Yingshu's eyes dimmed slightly, and even her voice took on a more somber tone. Why does your highness suddenly inquire about this? Could it be related to Hong Lian? She had harmed Hong Lian, so why was he showing such concern for her? Chapter 169. Does your highness care about her? Su Yingxue did not know why she cared so much about the relationship between Chu Yihan and Hong Lian. However, when she thought of how much Chu Yihan cared about Hong Lian, she was filled with anger. Chu Yihan had a perplexed expression in his eyes. He had asked just one question, so why was she suddenly upset? Inside this immaculate chamber, a folding screen separated the space. Mo Chi emerged from behind the screen and addressed Su Yingxue. Miss Su, your medical skills are exceptional, and your mother is the foremost female physician in the Great Cheng dynasty. You're undoubtedly capable of countering this poison. Please, assist your highness. After his plea, Hong Lian's voice came from behind the screen. Thank you, Miss Su. That voice pricked Su Yingxue like a needle. She glanced back at Mo Chi. He was Chu Yihan's trusted aide, and if he was this anxious about Hong Lian, could she infer that Chu Yihan held similar concerns? Chu Yihan looked at Su Yingxue, his eyes slowly losing their luster. He reached out to pull her close, but Su Yingxue pushed him away with a cold expression. Your highness, forgive my inadequacy. I cannot assist you in this matter. Why can't you help? If you could revive Consort Xiong even after her death, how can you possibly be unable to cure this poison? Mo Chi's anxiety was evident. Mo Chi. Chu Yihan reprimanded him sharply, and Mo Chi immediately lowered his head in apology. Miss Su, I acted hastily. But I implore you to help. Hong Lian's eyes have been poisoned. If she can't recover, it will be greatly inconvenient. The corners of Su Yingshu's mouth curled up in a cold, mocking arc. Of course, it would be inconvenient. If Hong Lian were relieved of her condition, her and Zi Weiss lives would be in peril. Yet, Su Yingxue persisted. She looked straight at Chu Yihan, resolute and direct. Your highness cares deeply for her. Must you assist her in detoxifying this poison? Chu Yihan furrowed his brow and contemplated for a moment before parting his lips slightly. If you can, one hope you'll do your utmost to try. Su Yingxue felt a fiery surge within her. She rose abruptly. Just like that night when I saved Sheng Ping, as long as I have the capability, one must save her, right? Chu Yihan, what do you take me for? Am I merely a tool for you to save people? No. Chu Yihan stood up quickly and took her hand, his palm radiating warmth. I never cared if you could save someone. What matters to me is you. What is it? If I couldn't save someone if one were useless, would your highness still treat me like this? Would he still be this kind to her? Su Yingshu's eyes brimmed with a hint of bitterness, a trace of moisture forming. Chu Yihan was about to blurt out that he would still treat her the same, but suddenly, Hong Lian interjected, Your highness, I will take my leave to clear up the misunderstanding between you two. She rose and left from behind the screen, appearing to stumble due to her unclear vision, causing a commotion. Mo Chi rushed to assist her, saying, Hong Lian, please be careful. Su didn't say she wouldn't help. Your highness was still discussing it with her. Mo Chi's words only deepened the hurt Su Yingxue felt. Your highness and one were discussing saving lives, but I don't want to save them. Su Yingxue wiped her teary eyes, broke free from Chu Yihan's grasp, and fled. Su Yingxue. Chu Yihan wanted to chase after her, but Mo Chi shouted, Your highness, bad news. Hong Lian's eyes. Chu Yihan furrowed his brow and went behind the screen. Hong Lian's eyes were bleeding, a horrifying sight. Chu Yihan ordered coldly, Stop her bleeding. Yes, your highness. Mo Chi was frantic as he brought medicine. However, Hong Lian refused to let him touch her and instead painstakingly wiped away the bloodstains. The handkerchief Mo Chi gave her was still stained with tears. Chapter 170. Fake Hong Lian revealed her vulnerable side in front of Chu Yihan. Your highness, if I can no longer see, I'm afraid I won't be able to manage the Silver Moon Pavilion. Don't be discouraged. One will write a letter and instruct someone to find a renowned physician for you. Chu Yihan turned and penned a letter, which he then had Mochi deliver. Mochi hurriedly handed the letter to the palace guards and rushed back. However, upon his return, he found Hong Lian kneeling beside Chu Yihan. She appeared nothing like her usual self. She spoke softly, "Your Highness, what if one remain blind for the rest of my life?" "I won't let that happen," Chu Yihan replied coldly. His gaze didn't fall on Hong Lian but instead lingered on the chessboard, where Su Yingxue had made a game-changing move. Unaware of this, Hong Lian persisted in her plea. "Your Highness, if one can see again, you will be my savior. 111 remember you for the rest of my life." Chu Yihan held a chess piece. It felt cold to the touch, yet he sensed the warmth Su Yingxue had left behind when she touched it. Mochi reappeared and informed them that the letter had been sent. Chu Yihan seemed to awaken from his thoughts. He held the chess piece in his hand, stood up, and spoke with a chilly tone, "You don't have to do this. One saved you because of him. It has nothing to do with you. Su Yingxue has chosen not to help you, and that's her prerogative." Chu Yihan's words extinguished the glimmer of joy in Hong Lian's heart. She bit her lip, her tone filled with frustration. "Yes, Your Highness." As Chu Yihan departed, Hong Lian suddenly panicked and shouted, "Your Highness, Your Highness, can you stay and talk to Hong Lian a bit longer? Your Highness." She reached out as if trying to grasp something, but there was nothing there. Seeing her nearly stumble, Mochi extended his hand to support her. She grabbed onto his arm, her face lighting up with joy. "Your Highness, you've returned." "Your Highness has gone far away," Mochi sighed. Hong Lian's expression instantly turned cold and unreceptive. She released her grip on Mochi's hand and walked forward instinctively. Mochi glanced at his handkerchief, which he had just used to wipe away the bloodstains from Hong Lian. However, it wasn't her blood at all. Mochi couldn't help but warn her, "Hong Lian, don't waste your efforts in front of Your Highness." Hong Lian clung to the screen, her sharp nails piercing the exquisite red sandalwood. "What do you mean?" Mochi tucked the handkerchief into his chest. "Your Highness has already made it abundantly clear. If he discovers this handkerchief, you can forget about seeing him again in this lifetime. Do you dare to give the handkerchief to Your Highness?" Hong Lian's tone carried a potent threat. Mochi chuckled. Why wouldn't one dare? He simply refused to do it. Because if he did, she would be heartbroken, angry, and miserable for the rest of her life. Hong Lian was furious, but Mochi was someone close to Chu Yihan. She couldn't harm him, so she suppressed her anger and tried to please him. "Mochi, one implore you, please don't tell Your Highness." "I can choose not to tell Your Highness, but I have a condition." "Tell me," Hong Lian said calmly. As long as it didn't tarnish her image in Chu Yihan's eyes, she was willing to do anything. "Could you try to like me?" Chu Jinling wasn't partaking in this display of affection. When he emerged, he ran into Lin Cece, who was idly browsing in front of the bookshelves. Chapter 171, Great God Chu Jinling. The moment Lin Cece walked in, Su Yingxue rushed out. Lin Cece greeted her, but Su Yingxue ignored her. Chu Jinling noticed Lin Cece standing there in confusion and kindly stepped in to help smooth things over for Su Yingxue. "Miss Lin, Dr. Su had some urgent matters today, which is why she left in a hurry." "I see." Lin Cece nodded. "I was wondering why she ignored me." "Oh, Ninth Prince, what brings you here?" As the daughter of a prominent military family, Lin Cece had some knowledge of royalty. Compared to her scoundrel of a brother, Chu Xiuwen, and the haughty Chu Changye, she found Chu Jinling, who seemed to idle around all day, more endearing. Chu Jinling had a penchant for smiling, and when he did, it was like a breath of fresh air. "I own this bookstore. As the proprietor, it's only natural for me to visit regularly." "Proprietor?" Lin Cece's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. "I never expected you to own a bookstore. Miss Lin, are you underestimating me? I set up this entire bookstore, and each book was handpicked by me." Chu Jinling crossed his arms, appearing rather self-satisfied, as if to say, "See, I have my talent. The bookstore is quite nice, but there aren't enough books. I searched for a long time and couldn't find what one wanted to read. Lin Cece sighed softly. Since she didn't have anything in her hand, she subconsciously reached for her whip. However, she felt empty-handed. The whip had been given to Su Yingxue. Too few books. Miss Lin, are you joking? This bookstore of mine is among the best in Jiangdu City, featuring 3 floors of bookshelves. How could you not find the books you want? Chu Jinling couldn't stand others saying this. What? There are more upstairs. Lin Cece was genuinely surprised. Silly girl, come on, let me take you upstairs to find your books. Chu Jinling playfully tapped Lin Cece's head and led her to the 2nd floor. Lin Cece wanted to find military books to read, so Chu Jinling took her to a corner on the 2nd floor, set up a ladder, and fetched a stack of military books for her. Wow, what kind of military book is this? I've never seen it before. And these? Peerless God of War, Beacon Fighters. What are these? How come I've never heard of them before? Lin Cece flipped through the book in her hand, treating it like a precious treasure. These are all God of War novels. I adapted them based on my Imperial uncle's battlefield exploits. I've written his military techniques into these books, but I've presented them as stories to make them more engaging and lively. Since you like military books, you can choose from this category. Chu Jinling proudly raised an eyebrow, anticipating Lin Cece's compliments. Lin Cece didn't disappoint. Her large, sparkling eyes were filled with stars. 9th Prince, you're amazing. I've never seen anyone turn military tactics into storybooks like this. And there are so many of them, a whole 10 volumes. Ah, what's so great about it? I've been gossiping since the age of 10 and started writing books at 14. So far, I've only written a few hundred. Chu Jinling pulled out a folding fan from his waist and waved it with an air of elegance. Incredible. I think you're much more impressive than your brothers. Lin Cece's admiration was heartfelt. With the author himself by her side, Lin Cece pulled Chu Jinling into reading with her. When they reached exciting parts, she even engaged in discussions with him. It was rare for Chu Jinling to encounter someone who admired him so much. The more they talked, the happier he became. As their conversation deepened, he suddenly noticed that Lin Cece's eyes were exceptionally captivating. Especially when she looked at him, her eyes shone, as if they held all the stars in the sky. Chapter 172. Is Miss Smith jealous? When Su Yingxue returned to the clinic, the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She saw a few patients, but she couldn't quell the bitterness in her heart. She decided to head to the study in the backyard to read some medical books and calm down, but she sensed a hint of danger in the air. Without hesitation, she kicked the door open and found Zi Wei facing off against several individuals inside. Su Yingxue widened her eyes. Hong Lian, what do you think you're doing? Several black-clad assassins immediately closed in on her, forming a protective circle around Hong Lian. Hong Lian sneered. Naturally, we're here to reclaim what belongs to our Silver Moon Pavilion. You're dreaming. This is my clinic, and there's nothing here that belongs to your Silver Moon Pavilion. Get out. Su Yingxue shouted angrily. Honorable Miss Su, Genius Dr. Su, why so much anger? Could it be that you're jealous of the favor your highness shows me? Hong Lian's lips curled with pride. It wasn't pride in her role as the Silver Moon Pavilion's leader but rather pride in her victory in their previous encounter. Su Yingxue, aware that Hong Lian couldn't see, adjusted her breathing and chuckled. Hong Lian, before one poisoned you, I never imagined that the poison would not only narrow your eyes but also thicken your skin. Su Yingxue, do you think that your quick tongue can change the fact that your highness treats me well? Hong Lian's voice dripped with disdain. Why should one bother changing something that doesn't concern me? If he truly treats you well, then why are you still blind? Su Yingxue had an innate talent for provoking people. The stupidity of her past life had given way to sharp wit in this one. Her motto was simple: if someone didn't bother her, she wouldn't bother them. But if someone crossed her, Hong Lian's anger flared, and she waved her hand, ordering, "Find it. If you can't, take all the books from here." Are you looking for my mother's diary? No need. I didn't put it here. Where I've hidden it, you'll never find it, Su Yingxue said, crossing her arms. It's either in this clinic or the Marquise Manor. Su Yingxue, do you think I wouldn't dare to enter the Marquise Manor? Hong Lian gritted her teeth. She had led the Silver Moon Pavilion for so long, and nobody had dared to be so audacious in front of her. If you want to enter the Marquise Manor, one can take you there. But even if one gave you a month, you wouldn't find my mother's diary, even if you dug 3 feet into the Marquise Manor. Su Yingxue informed her calmly that she was the only one who could enter the Medicine King's Valley within her consciousness. Not to mention digging 3 feet into the Marquise Manor, even if Hong Lian dug 3 feet into the entire Great Cheng dynasty, she still wouldn't find it. Su Yingxue, just you wait. The day one regain my sight will be the day of your death. Hong Lian left those words behind and departed under the guard of her assassins. Su Yingxue's heart sank slightly. Hong Lian's words posed no real threat to her, but they served as a reminder. With Hong Lian's skills, she could always find someone to cure the poison. However, during the time she had been blind, she wouldn't be able to oversee every aspect of the Silver Moon Pavilion. She could infiltrate the Silver Moon Pavilion once more. Once inside the Silver Moon Pavilion, she would discover who exactly had come to trade and buy her mother's handwritten letter. Ziwei, Su Yingxue called softly, and the shadowy figure immediately moved to her side. Su Yingxue winked at him. Tonight, we're going to the Silver Moon Pavilion. Ziwei nodded. After night fell, Su Yingxue donned a black robe that blended seamlessly with the night, just like Ziwei. Under his guidance, they infiltrated the Silver Moon Pavilion. The terrain was complex, and security was tight. Su Yingxue had to remain vigilant for any poisoned traps in the security. After all, the Silver Moon Pavilion's trade network was extensive, and all kinds of poisons could be traded here. Their defenses might also employ these tactics. Chapter 173. Trap Ziwei had been living in the Silver Moon Pavilion for many years, so he was well acquainted with its layout. He led Su Yingxue into the Central Academy, where all the transaction records were stored. Su Yingxue gazed at the tightly sealed door and mused that the Silver Moon Pavilion was no different from other places. The guards could be easily evaded, and even this pavilion lacked any distinctive features. It was somewhat different from what she had imagined. As she took her first step, Ziwei suddenly grasped her hand. "We've fallen into a trap." His deep and hoarse voice resonated with a sense of impending danger. Before he could protect Su Yingxue within his embrace, the courtyard echoed with the sound of arrows. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. These were thick, heavily weighted arrows, 10 times more lethal than those crafted within the imperial palace. Su Yingxue widened her eyes in astonishment. Indeed, there's quite a difference. She had underestimated the situation. By the time she snapped out of it, Hong Lian and several assassins were already perched on the rafters. Hong Lian scolded sternly, "Who dares to trespass into my Silver Moon Pavilion?" Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. "Are you genuinely blind, or are you pretending?" Hong Lian had been in her study during daylight hours and now appeared before her. Su Yingxue didn't doubt that tonight was a trap set by Hong Lian to ensnare her. And she had fallen right into it. "Miss Su, we have no grudges between us. Even if you're unwilling to treat me, why barge into my Silver Moon Pavilion and disrupt my rules?" Hong Lian proclaimed with a tone of magnanimity. Su Yingxue sneered. "Pavilion Master Hong Lian, are you genuinely asking this question?" She forcefully seized her mother's diary, raised a lion to harm her, and even intruded into her study. And now, they were saying she disrupted their rules. "My Silver Moon Pavilion has always conducted itself by the rules. But I apologize, Miss Su, tonight you and number 1 must stay." Hong Lian raised her hand, formed a fist, and her assassins descended. Su Yingxue was protected by Ziwei behind her. When she saw him rush out recklessly, her heart tightened. She had been careless. The assassins below, when working together, were challenging for Ziwei to handle alone, despite his superiority in one-on-one combat. However, Ziwei had been an assassin for many years and understood one thing very well. That was captured the leader first. By capturing Hong Lian, He and Su Yingxue might escape this intricate trap unscathed. Ziwei inflicted injuries upon the others, preventing them from being able to concentrate. He then leaped into the air and thrust his sword toward Hong Lian. Although Hong Lian possessed formidable martial arts skills, her blindness meant that after exchanging only a couple of moves with Ziwei, her arm was pierced by his blade. Hong Lian tumbled heavily. Just as Ziwei was about to seize her, he sensed a swift cold gleam stabbing towards him. Despite his years of combat experience and exceptional speed, this sword arrived at an astonishing pace. He narrowly avoided a fatal strike but couldn't evade the second sword. Puchi. The Qingfeng sword pierced his abdomen. He attempted to counterattack but suffered a forceful palm strike. His flexible sword shattered under Chu Yihan's palm force, its sharp fragments slashing across his body. A surge of potent internal energy sent him hurtling from the rafter. Su Yingxue watched him land and rushed to assist him. Ziwei, get out of the way. To avoid injuring her, Ziwei managed his force and flew to the opposite side. Su Yingxue merely stumbled, but he collided with the wall. The arrow that had previously fallen on the wall embedded itself into his body, causing intense pain. Puff. Ziwei expelled several mouthfuls of blood. He raised his head, his gaze filled with concern as he looked at Su Yingxue. Be careful. Chapter 174. Enraged Chu Yihan. Su Yingxue ran towards him with all her might, but she was caught by Chu Yihan, who had descended from the sky. Chu Yihan pinched her shoulders and said coldly, "He's a traitor to the Silver Moon Pavilion, don't go over." Chu Yihan raised his sword and was about to kill Ziwei when Su Yingxue blocked his sword in horror. No. Chu Yihan quickly withdrew his sword. The sword aura brushed past Su Yingxue's cheek and cut off a strand of her hair. Su Yingxue had no time to notice the surprise in Chu Yihan's eyes. She turned and embraced Ziwei. Witnessing his pale, purplish complexion, she anxiously retrieved a heart protection pill and fed it to him. Desperately, she used a handkerchief to staunch his wound. She resembled a frantic child. Su Yingxue. Chu Yihan's forehead veins bulged as he witnessed her cradling the assassin. What's your relationship with him? Why are you protecting him so vehemently? He's mine. Su Yingxue turned around and roared. She never anticipated Chu Yihan's abrupt appearance, nearly resulting in Ziwei's death. Yours. Chu Yihan's face turned icy, and a pervasive aura of imminent violence filled the courtyard. Chu Yihan pointed his sword at Ziwei. This man defected from the Silver Moon Pavilion. He's unworthy. He didn't defect. One was the one who took him out of the Silver Moon Pavilion. Every time Chu Yihan uttered something, Su Yingxue countered with force, as if an insurmountable enmity existed between them. You took him away from the Silver Moon Pavilion? Chu Yihan slightly furrowed his brows. The Silver Moon Pavilion has strict rules. Didn't your Hong Lian inform you? She wanted my mother's letter, invited me over, and then one took Ziwei away. Su Yingxue's eyes glared at Hong Lian, radiating a murderous intent. Hong Lian's lips curled into a seductive curve. This was precisely the reaction she desired. Although she couldn't see it now, she could envision how anguished Su Yingxue's expression must be. The Ziwei she had meticulously trained had nearly perished under Chu Yihan's blade. And Chu Yihan, who cared so deeply for her. How could she not care for Chu Yihan? Chu Yihan frowned. One didn't come here today for her, but one didn't expect that your dealings with the Silver Moon Pavilion were incomplete. No wonder she had assassins by her side. No wonder he sent Mo Chi to handle the assassins by her side, allowing Ziwei to escape repeatedly. So it was Su Yingxue who protected him and tended to his wounds. Su Yingxue hadn't anticipated that Chu Yihan would reprimand her for it. She wore a cold smile. Why? Because one didn't complete the transaction. Your Highness plans to assist the Silver Moon Pavilion in killing Ziwei and me? You're fully aware I wouldn't do that. Chu Yihan's eyes reflected anguish. How could he bear to harm her? He pointed his sword at Ziwei. Since everything originated from him, once he's gone, you and the Silver Moon Pavilion will have no further obligations to each other. Your Highness, Miss Su, and Number One have been together for so long. It's likely she has some feelings for him. Miss Su even named him Ziwei. It seems she's quite fond of him, Hong Lian sighed softly. She seemed to mention the naming matter casually, but it struck the chord that Chu Yihan cared about the most. He couldn't tolerate the person he cared about holding another in her heart. Step aside. Chu Yihan barked. His eyes reddened. Seeing Su Yingxue holding the hand of this man, he couldn't suppress his killing intent. Chapter 175. This king completes the deal for her. Step aside. This sentence was spoken by Ziwei as he held Su Yingxue's hand. His breath was weak, his voice hoarse. Saying this inflicted even more pain on Su Yingxue's heart. She held Ziwei firmly and turned to face Chu Yihan. Her exquisite eyes were filled with determination. One won't let you. You can't kill him. Unless you kill me first. What did you just say? Chu Yihan's hand holding the sword trembled, and a hint of pain was hidden in his icy eyes. Did she care about him so much? What if I insist on killing him? Chu Yihan's eyes turned red, and his intent to kill grew stronger. I won't let this happen. Su Yingxue pronounced each word. She opened her arms, shielding herself behind them, using her body to confront Chu Yihan's blade. If he had persisted in striking her with the sword, she wouldn't have dodged. You. Go. Ziwei covered his wound, his voice strained and managed to utter 2 words. Su Yingxue didn't look back at him but firmly stated, I'm your master, and I'll protect you. If she couldn't even protect him, then what was the point of snatching him away from the Silver Moon Pavilion? Moonlight bathed the ground in a pale white glow. Chu Yihan's gaze was colder than the moonlight. He sheathed his sword and turned to Hong Lian. Let them go. Hong Lian smiled faintly. Yes, Your Highness. Hong Lian waved her hand. Clear the way for Miss Su and number 1. The assassins surrounding them immediately dispersed. Su Yingxue and Ziwei were no longer a threat. Su Yingxue carried Ziwei on her shoulder and walked away with him. She didn't even glance back at Chu Yihan. Hong Lian quietly followed Chu Yihan's footsteps. She was familiar with every corner of the Silver Moon Pavilion, but she nearly stumbled on the steps. Chu Yihan helped her up. Feeling the strength of his arm, Hong Lian stood up shyly and softly said, Thank you, Your Highness. No need. Chu Yihan withdrew his hand coldly. What do you plan to do about her deal with the Silver Moon Pavilion? Chu Yihan's eyes were as icy as ever. Hong Lian had already prepared an excuse. She wanted Chu Yihan to owe her a favor, so she said, Hong Lian knows that Your Highness cares about Miss Su. Miss Su took number 1 away. According to the Silver Moon Pavilion's rules, neither of them can be spared. But considering Your Highness' feelings, I will complete her trade. Before she could finish, Chu Yihan interrupted her. Hong Lian's expression froze. Chu Yihan wanted to complete the trade for Su Yingxue. He knew the Silver Moon Pavilion's rules very well. Hong Lian's lips trembled. Your Highness, this trade is no small matter. If Your Highness wants to personally complete it, that would inevitably require a much heavier price. She couldn't bear it. She couldn't bear it. I have already said it. I will complete this trade. From now on, Su Yingxue will owe nothing to the Silver Moon Pavilion. Chu Yihan left immediately after saying this. Hong Lian chased after him, her face pale. Your Highness, please don't. Don't go. Your Highness. All. Before, she wanted Chu Yihan to assist her, but this time, she tumbled down the stairs. She lay on the ground, half of her sharp nails broken, and her fingers bleeding. She gazed into the air and murmured, Your Highness, why? Is Su Yingxue that exceptional? Is she worth any heavy price? Su Yingxue brought Ziwei back to the clinic and tended to his wounds. Then, she immediately went to prepare medicine for him. Chapter 176. The person who chased after you when he applied the medicine, he was like a controlled piece of wood. He did whatever Su Yingxue told him to do. However, when Su Yingxue brought the medicine in front of him, his face was expressionless. He did not move or open his mouth. Do you want to drink it? If not, I'll make you drink it. Su Yingxue, with a worried expression, urged him. Ziwei continued to remain silent. Su Yingxue became so anxious that tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing this, Ziwei pointed towards her waist. Following his gesture, Su Yingxue retrieved a bag of candies from her belt. It was the same candy she had fed him last time. She bit her lip and chuckled softly. You're still thinking about candy, huh? The purple hue at the corners of Ziwei's eyes deepened, and the radiance it emitted grew colder. However, his eyes held warmth, especially when Su Yingxue presented the candy. Su Yingxue picked up the broken candies from the paper bag. All of them were shattered, with not a single intact piece left. She pursed her lips and negotiated with Ziwei. How about you drink the medicine first, and I promise to buy you candy first thing tomorrow morning. No. Ziwei firmly fixed his gaze on the candy. Su Yingxue glanced at the sky. It was already past curfew, and all the shops were closed. She wouldn't be able to buy candy at this hour. But she couldn't possibly let him avoid taking his medicine just because there was no candy, right? Su Yingxue set the broken candies aside and held the medicine, coaxing him gently. First, drink your medicine. I promise 111 get you candy as soon as the sun rises tomorrow. As she spoke, Ziwei had already picked up the half-broken bag of candy and put it into his mouth. Then, he drank the medicine from her hand. Su Yingxue didn't know what to say. But the fact that he was now willing to take his medicine, without her resorting to trickery or needle injections, was a significant change. However, the wounds on his body, including the one inflicted by Chu Yihan, still made her feel guilty. Su Yingxue sat by the bedside, organizing the events of tonight in her mind. It was true that she had fallen into Hong Lian's trap, and Chu Yihan's appearance probably wasn't as coincidental as it seemed. Moreover, Chu Yihan's words suggested that he had known Ziwei had been with her all along. And Ziwei had been injured throughout. During the spring banquet, she noticed that Mo Qi was also severely injured. She suddenly asked Ziwei, "Are the people who have been pursuing you from the 9th Prince's mansion?" Ziwei nodded. Yes. Su Yingxue's heart was instantly flooded with mixed emotions. Why didn't you tell me? Ziwei lowered his gaze and, with a hoarse voice, replied, "One didn't want to bother you." This statement hit Su Yingxue's heart like a punch. She felt remorseful towards him. She reached out to poke Ziwei's face and gently said, "You must not hide such things from me in the future. I am your master, understand?" Ziwei had heard many orders from his master, but they were always cold and domineering. However, only Su Yingxue gave him orders with such tenderness. Ziwei obediently nodded. "I will never hide anything from you in the future. I will faithfully protect you." Su Yingxue stayed by Ziwei's side throughout the night. She only relaxed when she saw that his wounds weren't inflamed. However, she knew that Ziwei wasn't one to take proper care of himself. She applied a sleeping draught to the silver needles and administered a few injections to ensure he slept soundly. She then instructed Manager Qi to feed him medicine and meals regularly. This was the only way she could prevent him from moving too much and disturbing his wounds. After a night of hard work, Manager Qi noticed that Su Yingxue looked exhausted and had the lingering scent of blood on her. He didn't dare to inquire about what had happened but expressed concern. "Miss, how about taking a break from your duties as a doctor today? Rest for the day." Chapter 177. Chu Changye came to look for her. Su Yingxue glanced at the many patients waiting in line in the lobby and waved her hand. "No need. I'll go change, and then you can let the patients in." Sigh. Manager Qi sighed. Su Yingxue's personality was so stubborn that no one could persuade her. Su Yingxue went to change into a clean set of clothes and sat in the treatment room. After seeing a few patients, she was a little tired. Manager Qi carefully distributed the patients to the other doctors and allowed Su Yingxue to rest in the treatment room for a while. However, a person suddenly walked in and headed straight for Su Yingxue's treatment room. Manager Qi quickly stopped him. "Hello, Dr. Su is resting. Please go to the other doctors. I'm not here to see a doctor." Chu Changye was extraordinarily handsome, carrying the noble aura of a prince from the royal family. As soon as he appeared, Manager Chi couldn't stop him. Su Yingxue had just taken a brief rest at the table when Chu Chengye walked in. Upon seeing the exhaustion on her face, he had initially intended to scold her, but now he felt a pang of sympathy. He instinctively reached out to hold Su Yingxue's hand. However, Su Yingxue woke up in reflex. Her eyes widened suddenly. After seeing Chu Chengye's face clearly, her beautiful face carried a hint of mockery. "Seventh Prince, you've graced us with your presence. What terminal illness have you contracted? Su Yingxue, is this how you speak to me?" Chu Chengye's temper wasn't bad, but whenever he saw Su Yingxue, she would easily provoke him. "I can't give you the attitude that your highness wants, but someone else will." Su Yingxue stood up and rubbed her sore temples. She pointed at Chu Chengye's back and said, "The door is there, your highness. Take care." She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. "Su Yingxue, I'm here today to inform you to go to the prince's mansion and treat my third brother. You must cure my third brother." Chu Chengye's good temper was gone after being chased away by her. He was only left with gritted teeth and a hot-blooded desire to conquer Su Yingxue. "Why?" Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows. "Seventh Prince, do you think that I, Su Yingxue, am a pushover? Let you do whatever you want? I don't think so. As long as you can cure third brother, I can put in a good word for you in front of my mother. When the old general returns to court and mentions our marriage, my mother will not disagree," Chu Chengye argued. Su Yingxue was speechless. "You're still thinking about marriage?" Su Yingxue thought. Su Yingxue's face was cold. Unfortunately, she was no longer the Su Yingxue from her previous life. "Your Highness, the engagement between you and me was just a joke. My grandfather might have already forgotten about this matter. There's no need to trouble him to enter the palace again," Su Yingxue said impatiently. She was about to walk out of the treatment room when Chu Chengye grabbed her hand and pulled her into his arms. "Do you hate me so much? Su Yingxue, have you had a change of heart? You've fallen in love with the 9th Imperial uncle, haven't you?" "Chu Chengye, don't spout nonsense." Su Yingxue kicked him away, and her face flushed red. "Am I right?" Chu Chengye's lips curled into a sneer. "The 9th Imperial uncle has always been arrogant and condescending, but you can touch his Qingfeng sword. Su Yingxue, one think you've been colluding with each other for a long time." "Pa." Su Yingxue gave him a tight slap. "Chu Chengye, if you say one more word, I'll make sure you won't be able to leave the clinic." She had been holding the poison in her hand for a long time. Chapter 178, Su Yuro and her daughter's vicious plan. "How will you stop me from leaving?" Chu Chengye was trying to provoke her. He knew he wouldn't lose to her in a fight. However, he didn't expect Su Yingxue to sprinkle white powder on him and then stab him with 3 needles. His entire body felt as if it was being bitten by thousands of snakes and insects. "All. Su Yingxue, how dare you?" Chu Chengye was in so much pain that a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Su Yingxue then stabbed him with 3 needles again. This time, she intended to make Chu Chengye's suffering even more intense. Chu Chengye's face turned pale. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Su Yingxue, stop." With a swift motion, Su Yingxue withdrew the silver needles. While Chu Chengye's pain subsided, his eyes were still filled with fear. Su Yingxue shouted coldly, "Get lost." He clutched his chest and left with great difficulty. However, he couldn't resist turning around and telling Su Yingxue, "The engagement between you and me will never be voided." Su Yingxue snorted coldly. She didn't care. She only cared about his words. "You've long fallen in love with the 9th Imperial uncle, haven't you?" These words were like a strong net that wrapped around her heart, tightening it, and causing her to feel suffocated and in pain. The news of Chu Chengye leaving the clinic in a sorry state quickly spread through the streets. Su Yingxue and Tongchang Medical Center had their share of popularity. Plus, with Su Yuro's curiosity, this news reached her ears in no time. She swung her hand and shattered a white jade teacup. 2 tears rolled down from her eyelashes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and reluctance. "This bitch. Not only did she seduce the 9th prince, but she also managed to capture your highness. How could your highness fall for that woman and her schemes? On the other hand, Liu Shulan remained much calmer compared to her. She held the golden thread in her hand and played with the incense powder in the incense burner. She smiled coldly and said, as long as they are men, they'll all cheat sooner or later. When they are used to women admiring them, they'll start yearning for what they can't have. Su Yuro pursed her lips and twisted the handkerchief in her hand when she heard this. Liu Shulan took her hand and patted it gently. Rua, think about it. Hasn't it always been like this? Su Yingxue used to idolize him, and your subtle displays of affection towards him made him focus on you. Now, Su Yingxue has simply used your tactics against you. Su Yuro gritted her teeth, her eyes welling up with tears. So what can I do? Can I have another chance? Now, the seventh prince's heart is completely in her hands. During the spring banquet, your highness looked at me far less than he did at her. He even went to look for her today. She felt too embarrassed to admit to Liu Shulan that Chu Chengye hadn't visited her in a long time. She was in a state of panic. Liu Shulan held her hand and reassured her not to worry. Su Yuro was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Now, Su Yingxue is the center of attention in the entire Jiangdu city. She has gained recognition in front of the emperor. How can one not be anxious? Mother, help me. Please, help me. She pulled Liu Shuyan's hand and acted coquettish. For so many years, every time her mother taught her, she would make sure Su Yingxue suffered a lot and held her accountable. Now, as long as her mother was around, Su Yingxue would not have it easy. I will teach you a method that will cause trouble for Su Yingxue. When something happens to her, you can deal with her slowly, Liu Shulan said, and her eyes were wrapped in layers of schemes. After hearing her mother's words, Su Yuro left immediately for the minister's estate. Wu Ruofei's legs hadn't fully recovered yet. She refused to take her medicine or eat. She couldn't afford to fall or bump into anything. She caused a commotion in her room all day long. Wu Hongtao, who had initially pitied her, occasionally came to check on her injuries. Chapter 179. Wu Ruofei is staying at the clinic. Seeing her in such a shrewish state, he couldn't be bothered to come again. He was in a precarious situation, and with Madame Wu's recent embarrassing incident, his two sons were becoming more and more disappointed. It was driving him to the brink of frustration. When Su Yuro arrived, Wu Ruofei was crying and refusing to eat. Feng He held the food, trembling beside her. Miss, please don't harm your health. You should eat a little. I won't eat. I won't. It's all your fault, you servants. How could my mother do something like that? My mother wouldn't. And my brothers. Oh. They are supposed to be so capable. Feng He, come over here. Wu Ruofei shouted like a madwoman. Feng He was trembling, every step filled with fear. She knew that when Wu Ruofei opened her mouth, she intended to bite someone again. Ever since her limbs were broken and she couldn't move, her way of venting her anger had become biting people. All the maids in the room had been bitten, their bodies covered in bruises. Just yesterday, in a fit of rage, she had bitten off half of a young girl's ear. That girl was only 13 years old, and her appearance was now permanently marred. Feng He had served Wu Ruofei for many years, prodding her temper countless times. But now that Wu Ruofei's anger was directed at her, she was terrified. Are you dead? You're walking so slowly. Hurry up and come over. Wu Ruofei glared at her and roared. Feng He closed her eyes and began to tremble before she even reached Wu Ruofei. As she got closer, Wu Ruofei opened her mouth and viciously bit into Feng He's arm. Miss, please be gentle. Feng He cried out in pain. It was hurt. Oh. Wu Ruofei used all her strength to bite Feng He's arm until it bled. All right, get lost. Feng He wiped away her tears and left, only to run into Su Yuro. Su Yuro had been quietly observing from outside the door for a while. When she saw Wu Ruofei in such a state, she wiped the gloating expression from her face and greeted her with a gentle and compassionate demeanor. Initially, Wu Ruofei didn't respond to her kindness, but when Su Yuro mentioned having a way to deal with Su Yingxue, Wu Ruofei's eyes lit up. After hearing Su Yuro's words, she snorted coldly. Why should one beg Su Yingxue? Even if she kneels in front of me, one won't let her treat me. Ruofei, don't you want to get better as soon as possible? If an ordinary doctor treats you, you'll have to stay in bed for at least another month. But I've heard that Su Yingxue's treatment for muscle and bone injuries is miraculous. If she heals you, won't you be able to stand up much sooner? By then, you won't have to worry about not being able to deal with her. Upon hearing the possibility of teaching Su Yingxue a lesson, Wu Ruofei's eyes started turning red. I want to get better as soon as possible. I want to avenge my mother and my brothers. That's the right attitude. Minister Wu doesn't have time to attend to you now. Tomorrow, have someone carry you to Su Yingxue's clinic. Her clinic has recently opened a patient ward. You can stay there for easy observation. Brother Hao. When Su Hao was mentioned, Wu Ruofei's excitement grew. She had made up her mind. Even if Su Yingxue refused to accept her, she would stay at her clinic. The following day, she had people carry her to the clinic in a grand procession. Su Yuro was concerned that she might inadvertently reveal something, so she even prepared a script for her to remember. If Su Yingxue rejected her and refused to treat her, she would create a scene at the clinic to tarnish her reputation. Chapter 180. 10,000 Su Yuro stood nearby, watching as Wu Ruofei was carried into the clinic. A trace of cruelty flickered in her eyes. Su Yingxue, even if you refuse to accept Wu Ruofei this time, you will still suffer consequences, Su Yuro muttered. Wu Ruofei was brought into the clinic and explicitly requested that Su Yingxue treat her. Manager Qi had an exceptional memory, so how could he forget her previous conflicts with Su Yingxue? He quickly put on a smile and said, Miss, our Dr. Su is currently occupied. You'll need to wait for a few hours. Why don't we have another doctor attend to you? Dr. Du, here, is particularly skilled at treating muscle and bone injuries. I'm a female patient. One can't allow a male doctor to examine me. How will one ever marry in the future? Today is the 15th day of the month. Isn't Dr. Su known for treating women? If she has many patients, 111 wait. Wu Ruofei sat in a wheelchair surrounded by 4 male servants and 4 maids, occupying a considerable space. Having attracted attention, she recited everything Su Yuro had coached her to say. Manager Qi found it quite challenging to handle the situation. He instructed his apprentice to keep an eye on Wu Ruofei while he went to consult Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue furrowed her brow. Did Wu Ruofei say that? Yes, indeed. Miss Wu is behaving completely differently from her previous disruptive self. One had her wait outside, and she didn't even get angry. This time, it seems she came prepared, Manager Qi said, clearly worried. It was too difficult for his young miss to open this clinic. There were always people who wanted to find trouble with her. Never mind. Have someone bring her inside. Ill-treat her. Su Yingxue waved her hand dismissively. But miss, what if she intends to harm you, then I'll disable her first. Su Yingxue's eyes flashed with cold determination. If she could break Wu Ruofei's limbs once, she could break her bones twice. Wu Ruofei was carried into Su Yingxue's treatment room. With no one to rely on, she felt somewhat apprehensive about facing Su Yingxue alone. Su Yingxue exuded an icy aura when her face turned cold. She approached Wu Ruofei, who trembled in fear. What are you doing? Su Yingxue rolled her eyes. You came for medical treatment, so how can I treat you if one don't examine you? You. Be gentle. It hurts. Su Yingxue, what are you doing? Be gentler. It hurts. Father. Mother. Sob. It hurts. Su Yingxue removed all the bandages from Wu Ruofei's hands and feet, inspecting her wounds. She spoke icily, I'll apply some medicine and put a cast on you. Go back and rest. You'll be fine in less than a month. I'm not going back. Su Yingxue, one want to stay here and recover. Wu Ruofei cried out in pain, her voice tearful yet stubborn. I don't have a place for recovery here. Nonsense, you have a ward here. I'm a patient here to see a doctor, so one can stay here. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. You can recover at home. How did you even know that I opened a ward here? It had only been 3 days since she established the ward, and Wu Ruofei was already eager to move in. Such a coincidence seemed unlikely. Wu Ruofei appeared fearful of being exposed and hastily explained, "It was my father who said so. He doesn't have time to take care of me, and here, as long as it helps me recover quickly, one don't care. I want to stay in the ward." Su Yingxue sneered. You can stay in the ward, but first, pay the consultation fee. How much? 10,000 taels. Su Yingxue, how can you be so heartless? Seeing a doctor and staying in a ward couldn't possibly cost 10,000 taels. Wu Ruofei gritted her teeth. Do you want to stay or not? Chapter 181. Care about the Ninth Prince. It's up to you whether you want to stay or not. If you stayed here, the clinic was responsible for your food, clothing, accommodation, transportation, and even for your recovery. Do you think I opened this clinic to run at a loss? Su Yingxue coldly admonished. She didn't believe Wu Ruofei could produce 10,000 taels to stay in her ward. However, Wu Ruofei, going against her usual demeanor, insisted, 10,000 taels it is. I'll have Feng he return to the residence to fetch the money. You. Please arrange a room for me first. I want a single room, the best available. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, stating, for the best single room, it's 20,000 taels. Su Yingxue, you're raising the price on the spot. Wu Ruofei gritted her teeth in frustration. 20,000 taels. Her father's annual salary wasn't even close to that. Su Yingxue's expression remained icy. She reiterated, do you want to stay or not? I'm staying. Wu Ruofei clenched her teeth. For the sake of challenging Su Yingxue and for her beloved brother Hao, she was prepared to go bankrupt if necessary. In the afternoon, the minister's estate delivered 20,000 taels of silver. Su Yingxue instructed manager Qi to arrange a ward for Wu Ruofei and placed her in the innermost room on the 3rd floor to prevent her from causing any problems. Manager Qi carried out the orders. In the evening, Wu Jinyang came back from work. She was temporarily staying at the clinic and heard about this from manager Qi. Since Su Yingxue was also residing there and rarely visited the Marquise Manor, they had more opportunities to converse. Observing that Su Yingxue had barely eaten, Wu Jinyang asked, is this all because of my sister? Su Yingxue used her chopsticks to poke at the rice in her bowl. Abruptly, she dropped her chopsticks and replied in a subdued voice, If you don't want to, you could return the silver to her, and she could return to the residence. However, 111 make sure to help you earn back those 20,000 taels through Thousand Jiao Pavilion. Wu Jinyang comforted her by patting her hand. She knew that Su Yingxue had invested a significant amount of silver to establish the Thousand Jiao Pavilion for her. If it weren't for the fact that both the clinic and Thousand Jiao Pavilion needed to run smoothly, Su Yingxue probably wouldn't have accommodated Wu Ruofei. Su Yingxue shook her head and confessed in a somber tone, it's not just about the money. Wu Ruofei came prepared, but there was someone behind her pulling the strings in the shadows. If I don't accept her and she spreads damaging rumors about the clinic's branch, we might face endless troubles here. It's better to take her in and see what tricks she might attempt. Wu Jinyang initially worried that Su Yingxue might not see through the situation. However, after hearing her words, she felt more assured and less concerned. Still, seeing Su Yingxue's persistent furrowed brows, Wu Jinyang tentatively asked, do you have something else on your mind? Su Yingxue quickly relaxed her brow, diverting her attention to eating a few mouthfuls of rice. No. Really? Aren't you concerned about Zi Wei's injuries? Su Yingxue innocently shook her head. One administered medicine to him. He'll recover. Then, is it about the 7th prince? Wu Jinyang continued to probe. Su Yingxue let out a light snort. What's there to ponder about him? Then, is it the 9th prince? When Wu Jinyang asked this question, even the air fell silent for a long time. The food in Su Yingxue's mouth suddenly lost its flavor. She chewed and swallowed it, but it felt like a lump was stuck in her throat, as uncomfortable as a stone wedged there. As she choked, her eyes welled up with tears. Wu Jinyang hastily patted her back to help her breathe. Su Yingxue drank a large gulp of water before managing to swallow the food that had caused her to choke. Seeing her in this state, Wu Jinyang sighed. Since you care so much, why make things difficult for yourself? I didn't. Su Yingxue's eyes were still red, filled with determination. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.